Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has red hair in the Rinnegan. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by a very lazy person and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. On the date of October 10th, the Kyuubi no Yoko appeared within the walls of our village. We don't know why the Kyuubi attacked or where it came from, but legends say it is a natural disaster that appears wherever human malice has collected and is at its strongest. Whether or not this is a reason it attacked us is still unknown, but the reasons are still being looked into to this day. Anyway, when the Kyuubi attacked, many homes and buildings were destroyed and many lives were lost. However, thanks to the Sandaime Hokage and the brave ninja of the leaf, the damages and lost lives were kept to a minimum. As the battle continued to rage on, the Yondaime Hokage appeared and took matters into his own hands. Using the space-time jutsu he was a master of, he teleported himself and the Kyuubi out of the village to finish the battle undisturbed and unhindered. The results of the battle was victory for the Hokage, but at the cost of his life. As a result, the Sandaime had to retake the mantle of Hokage until he could find a suitable successor. Now, 5 years later, the Sandaime is still the Hokage and the village is in a state of peace and is recovering at a steady pace. Now, are there any questions? The Chunin took a glance around the room to see if any of her students did in fact have a question. As her eyes scanned the room, she mainly just saw most of her students with their heads on their desks, only half paying attention. She was honestly a bit surprised at that. She knew that history can be a bit dry, but when the kids usually hear about the Yondaime they perk up a bit. Out of the corner of her eye she saw a hand raise and smiled to herself, glad at least one student was interested in the subject of his village. "Yes, Daichi, what's your question?" the Chunin instructor asked of her student. "Yeah, I was wondering why that kid's in our class. He shouldn't even be in the academy yet, should he?" Daichi asked of his sensei. A bit annoyed that the question had nothing to do with their current topic, the sensei looked towards the kid Daichi was talking about. The child in question was a small boy no older than 5 years old. He was about 3 feet tall and had a round chubby face. His eyes were a deep amethyst color that seemed to shine with an unnaturally beautiful light. He wore a pair of dark green shorts that went just past his knees and a white t-shirt with a red leaf symbol on the front of it. He also had two rather unusual features about him. The first was his straight bright red hair that stopped about 2 inches above his shoulders with 2 strands framing his face. The second was his birthmarks. They looked like whiskers, 3 on both of his cheeks. The Chunin instructor continued to eye the boy for a moment as she thought of a way to answer her student. The boy was a new student and today was his first day despite it being halfway into the year. She couldn't tell them the full story of why this boy was in their class, but not answering the question or an outright lie would just have the other kids stay away from him. In the end, a half-truth is always the way to go. Uzumaki Naruto has shown the necessary requirements to enter the academy early, as judged by the admissions of the academy. He has also shown the skill necessary to skip ahead a grade and take part in the second-year classes. Does that answer your question, Daichi? Truth was he did have the skill to jump up a grade. He made quick work of the first-year material, acing all the tests with ease. He was also ready physically for the exercises done by second years, so it was decided he move up a grade. Well, it's true that this can probably be said for a few other students, Uzumaki Naruto was special. And it was actually that specialness that allowed him into the academy a year early in the first place. Something that had most teachers wondering if they should even be teaching him at all. It was also something that the students knew nothing about and weren't allowed to know about. Whether they knew or not though, didn't mean they liked him there any more than the teachers. "I still don't believe a little kid like him is good enough to be here," Daichi mumbles to himself. Despite hearing him, the instructor decides to ignore it and address the new student. "While it is true that introductions probably should have been done when you first arrived, I didn't wish to stop mid-lecture. Now that it's over, how about you introduce yourself to everyone, Naruto?" The sensei smiled up to the mentioned student, encouraging him to do it. Said boy smiled back as he stood up from his seat at the back of the room. He gave a quick scan of the room before starting his introduction. "Hello everyone, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. My main likes are ramen, gardening, reading, and training. I dislike people who judge someone before they get to know them and the time it takes waiting for ramen to cook. My dream is to be a respectable Hokage that can protect this village and everyone in it just like the Sandaime and Yondaime." As Naruto finished his introduction, the classroom burst into laughter. The children were all either holding their sides or pointing at the redhead. Only a few weren't laughing as they eyed the boy in either curiosity or interest. Suddenly Daichi stood up from his seat and looked Naruto in the eyes. He smirked as he said, "A shrimpy little kid like you, Hokage. There's no way that will ever happen. Hell, right now you look more like a tomato than a ninja in training. You should quit now while you're ahead, you overgrown vegetable." He turned to the side and high-fived his friends as everyone laughed even harder. The sensei continued to try to calm everyone down with very little effect. Just when she was about to yell for everyone to stop or risk attention, Naruto's calm voice became heard over the laughter. You know, a tomato isn't a vegetable, it's actually a fruit. It must be pretty embarrassing to be corrected by a little kid who's younger than you and doesn't even seem like a ninja in training, huh? That really doesn't say much about you, you know. Naruto finished with a smirk of his own on his lips. The laughter continued just like before, only now being directed at Daichi instead. The only ones not laughing or chuckling were Daichi and the friends he high-fived before. They were all glaring up at him in anger, but before anyone could say anything, the Chunin instructor beat them to it. Alright, that's enough, everyone. I expect better from all of you. You are all fellow Leaf Ninja in training and should be respectful towards one another. Daichi, you have detention after school, and Naruto, since this is your first day in this class, I'm giving you a warning. What? Why do I get detention and that kid only gets a warning? Daichi asks his sensei. I already told you. This is Naruto's first day in a new class, so I'm cutting him some slack. You on the other hand should know better, and you started the whole thing. Now this isn't up for discussion, so sit down. The instructor stated firmly. Daichi did as he was told even though he really didn't like it. Naruto on the other hand remained standing for a moment before slightly bowing down. Gomen nasai sensei. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just don't like to be judged by someone who knows nothing about me. Naruto says to his teacher. That's all right, Naruto, and thank you for apologizing. However, am I really the one you should be apologizing to? The teacher says as she smiles at the redhead. It was rare to hear that from a child without making them say it. It will be nice to have a little gentleman in class instead of a brat, she thought to herself. Gomen nasai Daichi. Naruto says without any hesitation or sarcasm. Suck up. Daichi mutters out, only loud enough for those close to him to hear. Everyone hearing it agreeing with him. Daichi, is there something you want to say to Naruto? The teacher asks her student. Nope. Is the immediate reply from the 7-year-old. Daichi. The teacher warned. Sai Gomen nasai Uzumaki. The sensei just let it go, knowing that was the best she was going to get out of him. She stopped for a minute to think about what to do next. History was done for the day, and they already covered some chakra theory earlier. The next best thing to do would be some physical exercise. It will also wake up a few that are still half asleep, she thought to herself. With the plan in mind, the teacher announced it to the class. Alright everyone, we're going to go outside and do some exercises now. This will give your minds a slight rest and get the blood flowing too. So everyone get up and follow me outside. The Chunin declared. Hi, Kurenai-sensei. The class called out as they followed her through the door. Yuhi Kurenai was what many would call, and have called, a very beautiful woman. She had messy black hair that reached past her shoulders and only stayed out of her eyes because of her hit-eye, which was placed on her forehead. Her eyes were an exotic wine-colored red that had an extra ring around the pupil. She wore red lipstick and used purple eyeliner. Her clothes consists of red pants with a red sleeveless turtleneck shirt. Over that is a traditional Chunin flat jacket that most Chunins wear. Currently she was watching as her students started wrapping up the exercises they were doing. It wasn't anything big, some laps around the school along with some push-ups and sit-ups, maybe some sparring if they had some time. They were just children right now, there was no need to go overboard and try to do things that would physically stunt them. Her eyes then drifted to her youngest charge, one that was already done with his exercises. He's 2 years younger than everyone, and yet he's still keeping up with the best students in the class, Kurenai noticed as she saw the redhead stand with the others that were done. Despite what some people believed, he really did deserve to be in this class. He's keeping up with the best students not only physically, but based on his previous test scores academically as well. Kurenai smiled to herself a bit as the rest of her students finished their tasks. I may just have a little prodigy in my class, then again that may be a bit much. I'll keep an eye on him though, he's an interesting little boy, she thought to herself. Sure, she knew just who this boy was, but truth was it didn't really matter to her. She was a teacher and she was going to teach any student that came under her wing, regardless of who they were or what they may hold. Refocusing on her students, Kurenai announced to the class. Alright everyone, you all did a good job. I'm going to let you all have lunch a bit early today, but that means everyone is back exactly on time for the next class, alright? Hi, Kurenai-sensei. Was the response she got from every student. Kurenai watched them all for a moment longer before turning around and heading back into the classroom to grade some papers. Naruto was currently sitting on the swing that was located on the tree right outside the entrance of the academy. It was halfway through lunch and he had already eaten the bento that his Ni-chan had packed for him. He was currently reading a book that he got not too long ago. At least he was trying to. Naruto may be smart for his age, but he was still just a child and he had trouble with some of the words. He underlined those words so he could ask his Ni-chan what they meant later. As he was underlining he saw someone walking towards him out of his peripheral vision. He put his book and pencil down and turned towards the new arrival. Naruto recognized him as one of his current classmates. It was a boy who was taller than him, not really all that surprising. He had black, semi-spiky hair that reached down to his shoulders. He had golden-colored eyes and tan skin. He was wearing black pants that had a lot of pockets on them and a white t-shirt with what looked like 3 claw marks as a design on the front. He was also wearing a necklace that had something that looked like a black diamond hanging from a silver chain. The boy continued to walk towards him till he was right in front of him. Then he stuck out his hand with a smirk. It's rare to see a new kid stand up for himself in front of an entire class where everyone is older than him. That takes some guts. My name is Kaio, what's your name, kid? I wasn't really paying attention when it was said. Thanks. My name's Uzumaki Naruto, and aren't you a kid too? Naruto answered as he shook Kaio's hand and then questioned him right back. Yeah, so. Is there a problem with a kid calling an even younger kid a kid? Was the immediate response followed by a smile. No, I guess there isn't. Naruto said with a smile of his own. So is there something I can help you with, Kaio? Not really, no. Just figured I'd tell you to watch out for Daichi is all. He seems to be gunning for you after what you said to him. Really? Well, thanks for the tip, but I think I'll be alright. Naruto told him with no hint of worry in his voice. Kaio grinned as he heard this. You're an interesting kid, you know that. But really you should watch out for Daichi. He won't do anything if someone's with you, but he'll most likely gang up on you with his friends when he does find you alone. Dude's a coward like that. Thanks for the warning, I really appreciate it. I'll keep it in mind and think of something. Naruto told him, already trying to think of something to get Daichi off his back. No problem, Red. So, what you're reading there? It doesn't look like anything from school and you seemed pretty into it before I came over. Kaio questioned the younger boy. It was a present from someone close. It's called The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi and it's a really good book. Well, at least the parts I can fully make out are really good. I'm having trouble with some of the words. He admitted with a sheepish smile. Makes sense, you're just a kid. But you know, if you want, I can try and help you out with some of the words. Though I don't know how much help I'll be. The older boy suggested. Really? That would be great. For the rest of lunch the two boys kept on reading what they could of the book. When the first bell finally did ring the two got up and started their way back to class. Both were talking about what they had just read and both were smiling. Ding dong ding dong ding dong. Kurenai stopped what she was saying as the final bell of the day went off. The students were already packed and up out of their seats by the time the second bell went off. Sighing at how eager they are to get out, she quickly told them their assignment before they got out the door. Read pages 67 through 82 and do problems 16 to 30 for tonight. Everyone hear that? Bronhai Kurenai-sensei. Typical class response. Everyone was now outside the building and excited to be out of class. The students were either meeting their parents, meeting up with friends, or starting their walk home. Naruto was one of the latter. As he was passing the swing he saw some of the looks the parents gave to him, but he just ignored them and continued on his way. Seeing this the parents decided to ignore him as well. That was when Naruto saw a group of about 5 kids looking right at him and now heading his way since no one was looking at him anymore. At the front of the group was a boy with short brown hair and brown eyes. He was average height for his age and a bit on the lean side. He had on light brown, more tannish colored pants with an orange long-sleeved shirt on. Him and all the other guys around him were glaring right at Naruto. Naruto didn't expect this. He figured Daichi would try something later or tomorrow at lunch. He didn't think it would be this soon with all these people around. Then he looked around again and saw not a single person sparing him a second glance. They were all still ignoring him and didn't even see the group of boys. The group was getting pretty close and before he could even do anything. Yo Naruto, wait up. Everyone looked towards the source of the yell, Naruto especially. He saw Kaio working his way past everyone as he made his way to him. As he passed by Daichi he gave him a smirk that was answered with a glare. That was when Naruto noticed that everyone was now focused on him again and he had to smile at what Kaio did. Hey Kaio, what do you want? Naruto said with his smile still on his face. Just wonder if you wanted to get a bite to eat. I'm a bit hungry and I figured we could read more of that book while we wait for the food. Yeah, that sound good. With that the two started to walk off leaving everyone, including a pissed off Daichi, behind. Do you know where you want to eat? Naruto asked after the two left the academy grounds. Nah, I'm good with any place so you chose. You ever eaten at Ichiraku's ramen? No, I don't think so. Is it any good? It's the best, Naruto said, genuinely believing what he was saying. I also want to say thanks for back there. You saved me a lot of trouble. It was nothing. I mean, what are friends for? At that both boys smiled as Naruto continued to lead them to the Chirakus, planning on having a great meal with his first friend. And done. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto. The Ichiraku Ramen Bar was a quaint little bar which was open from morning to night. It wasn't a big place, only having seating for around 6 or 7, but that didn't mean it wasn't popular. It was known to have some of the best ramen in all of Konoha and managed to do quite well for itself. The only reason it was never expanded was because the owner, Tucci, wanted to keep it solely a family-run business. And right now that business was to serve the two young boys who just entered great food. Well, if it isn't little Naru-chan. How was your first day in a new class? A young brunette girl with brown eyes asked the redhead from behind the counter with a smile. It wasn't too bad. Naruto said as he took a seat. The classes are fun and Kurenai-sensei seems really nice. Hey Ni-chan, could you make us some ramen please? Us? Was her confused reply. Looking to her left she took notice of the other boy for the first time. Oh, and who are you? My name's Kaio, I'm in Naruto's class. So can you really make ramen as good as he says? Kaio asked. Aw, that's cute, you brought a friend over for lunch. My name's Am by the way, and as for the ramen, well, how good does he say it is? Am asked with a question of her own. He said that it's the best food in the whole world. Am giggled when she heard this. He thinks that about all ramen, not just ours. She clarified. But it's true, Naruto defended, ramen is the best food in the world. And you guys have the best ramen, so it's the best of the best. He reasoned. You haven't tried anywhere near all the food in the world. And as for ramen, we're the only ramen you've ever had besides instant. Am said. This caused Naruto to pout, but before he could say anything Kaio beat him to it. Can we talk after you make us our food? I'm really hungry and talking about food isn't helping. This was followed by a growl of his stomach, driving his point home. Am heard this and let out a couple more giggles before getting serious and taking their order. Of course we can. Do you know what you want? I've never had ramen before so I'll have what Red's having. Frowning for a moment at the nickname she heard, she replaced it with a smile right away. Turning around she yelled into the back of the bar. Hey Otu-san, 2 miso ramen please. Hearing a sure from the back, Am returned her attention to the two boys and addressed the raven-haired one with a smile still in place. Otu-san's a great chief, so it should be done pretty quickly. A little bragging can be good for business after all. And Kami. I didn't have much for lunch and I'm really hungry. Kaio said with some relief in his voice. Hearing lunch caused Am to remember something she's been waiting to ask Naruto. Speaking of lunch, how'd you like that bento I packed for you Naru-chan? I made sure to put in some extra pork. Am asked. It was great Ni-chan. Everything tasted really good and it filled me right up. The rice tasted funny though. And can you stop calling me Naru-chan? Naruto asked his Ni-chan with a frown. Am gave him a big smile as she answered. Nope, you're always going to be little Naru-chan to me. I am glad you liked it all though. As for the rice, I cooked it a little longer and put some seasoning on. Please stop. I can't hear any more about food. Kaio whined out loud, causing the other two to laugh a bit at him. There's nothing funny about me being hungry. Was his pout-filled reply to the laughs. Sorry, but I think it is. Naruto said as a few more laughs escaped him. He then remembered the book that he was reading during lunch and decided to ask Am about it now. Hey Ni-chan, seeing her give him her attention he continued. I was reading that book Gigi gave me during lunch and I'm having trouble with some of the words. Can you help me out with it? Naruto asked. This got Kaio's attention and he decided to add in his own 2 cents. Yeah, I tried to help him out, but that book is really hard. Even together we don't understand half of it. Makes sense, you are just kids. Am said, which caused Kaio to pause. That was the same thing he said to Naruto at lunch. Frowning for a second Kaio asked her a question you are never supposed to ask a woman. And how old are you that you can understand everything that we can't? Am answered without missing a beat. I'm 14, so I'm a teenager not a kid. There's a big difference between the two you know. Before either of the two could say anything back a man that looked to be in his 40s came into view. He had dark gray hair and he seemed to be squinting his eyes. The most important thing about him, concerning the two boys at least, was that he had 2 steaming bowls of food in his hands. He smiled as he set them onto the counter and greeted the redhead. Naruto, it's good to see you. He then turned to address the only girl there. Am, you should have told me Naruto was here. And who's this young man with him? The chief asked the waitress. I figured it would be a nice little surprise too san. As for the kid, that's a classmate of Naruto's. Am answered her father. Said man turned to Kaio and introduced himself. Hello my boy, my name's Tucci. I'm the owner of this bar and since this is the first time you've not only eaten here but even tried ramen, consider it on the house. Wow, really? Thanks Tucci-san. My name's Kaio by the way. Kaio said to the bar owner in excited gratitude. He then picked up his chopsticks, but before he broke them he got a confused look on his face. How did you know I've never had ramen before? He questioned Tucci as he heard Naruto say itadaki. I heard bits and pieces of you three talking from the kitchen. Tucci answered as he went back to the kitchen. Oh, that makes sense. Kaio said as he broke his chopsticks apart and said an itadaki of his own. He took a bite of the ramen and his eyes widened in surprise as he turned to Naruto. Whoa, you were right, Red, this is some goo. Kaio stopped mid-sentence when he saw Naruto. It wasn't Naruto that made him stop though. No, it was the empty bowl in front of him that did the trick. Taking a quick look to the floor to see if he dumped it, he saw nothing. He then refocused his stare on Naruto as he tried to figure this out. Turning to look at the other boy, Naruto just had to ask. What? Blinking a few times, Kaio responded. Holy shit. There's no way you could have finished Bam. Tai. What was that for? Kaio said as he glared up at AM who was holding a ladle. One she just used to hit him over the head with. You shouldn't use that kind of language in front of a lady. Besides, I don't want to hear Naruto start talking like that. AM answered as she glared right back. Who cares how I talk? Do you see that empty bowl? How is that even possible? He asked as he just stared at Naruto. Said boy just blushed in embarrassment before he responded. I said I really like ramen. The awkward silence followed by laughter. After a good laugh at Naruto's expense, the two boys finished their meals. They stayed there for a while as AM helped them read and understand the tale of the utterly gutsy shinobi. Naruto wanted to keep reading, but the bar started to get busy so they had to stop. AM did have a job to do after all. The two decided to walk around and look for something to do, seeing as neither felt like going home just yet. It was then that Kaio asked a question he wanted to ask since lunch. Hey Naruto, I know Kurenai-sensei told us a bit, but what did you do to let you skip a grade? And how did you get in early anyway? Getting in early is easy. All you have to do is love your village and help it grow. You also gotta be able to train your mind and body and be strong in both. Naruto answered. Kaio gave him a funny look. That's it. Love your village and be able to train. Yeah, I think so. That's what they told me anyway. How did you get in? Naruto asked a question of his own. Kaio pondered for a moment. I don't know. I was just told one day that I was going to the academy to be a ninja. I thought it sounded cool so I never gave it a second thought. Kaio admitted. So how did you skip a grade again? Naruto looked down at his feet for a while. He didn't even seem to realize that he had stopped walking. The two had ended up in a park. The silence continued and when it seemed like he wasn't going to answer he suddenly spoke up. The tests were always really easy for me. I never had any trouble getting what the sensei was saying and I got Ni-chan to help me read ahead in the books. It was all just so interesting and good that I didn't want to stop. Before I was allowed to move up I had to take a test to see if I could handle the stuff they were teaching. It was harder, but not too bad. I passed and was allowed in. Naruto said as he kept looking at his feet. That can't be it though. If it was all the smart people in our class would move up, but none of them are. I wonder what else it was. Kaio thought out loud. Naruto then looked up and at the other boy. It was something else. Naruto said, getting Kaio's attention once again. Before I ever took that test, I got into a fight with someone in that class. Kaio's eyes widened when he heard that. We don't start spars until the third year. The first two are us learning the academy taijutsu and doing exercises. So when you say fight you really mean a fight, huh? Kaio says. Naruto nods his head. Yeah. The other kid just kept going on about how I wasn't good enough to be there and that I should just leave. I ignored him even when he said he'd prove it. That's when he took a swing at me. It hit, I got really angry and punched back. We fought for a long time, at least I think it was a long time. I ended up winning, but I hurt the other person pretty bad. I still feel bad about it. That's not too bad. I mean you don't seem like a fighter, but lots of kids get in fights and just get detention. What's so special about that fight? And as for the other kid, well he started it so he got what he deserved. Kaio said to the red-haired boy in front of him. I don't think so. I mean it felt good to let go like that, but when I punched the other guy in the eye, he ended up bleeding from it after the hit. Naruto said, going into a bit more detail. I still don't get it. Kaio said, still not see the big deal. The other person was a Hyuga. Naruto clarified. Kaio was stunned. You mean you not only beat a Hyuga, but hurt one of their eyes? Damn man, that's big. Hyugas get funny when it comes to their eyes. Yeah they do. I did get in trouble for the whole thing, along with the other guy, but apparently beating a Hyuga is something special. Even if he wasn't trained that much yet everyone was still surprised that I won. A couple weeks later they asked me if I wanted to take a test to move up a year. That's really it. Naruto said finishing his story. Io seemed to think about it as he leaned against a tree. Naruto wondering just when they got anywhere near a tree. That sucks for the Hyuga, but the story is kind of cool. I mean you actually beat up a Hyuga, you must be stronger than I thought. Kaio says to Naruto before grinning. Guess you really didn't need to worry about Daichi after all. If he had his friends with him I would. I don't even know how strong he is, so I might even if it was just him. He's not bad, but not that good either. Kaio informs Naruto. Naruto thinks about it for a second before looking up and noticing that the sun was starting to set. I didn't know it was this late yet. Looking back at his current company he addresses him. I got to go, I promised Ni-chan I'd help her in the garden today. Kaio blinks at that as he gets up. You really garden? I thought you were just kidding earlier. He says as Naruto smiles. Nope, I really do. But I don't really do anything, Ni-chan does most of it. I just kind of help her out with the easy stuff. He said continuing to smile the whole time. Alright. I gotta get going too. Don't want that old man to get mad. See you later Red. Kaio was already walking and waving before he even finished talking. Naruto waved back before looking around to find out where he was. Once he figured it out, he too started on his way home. As he was walking Naruto started to think about Kaio. He was a fun guy and he seemed really nice. Other people seemed nice too though Naruto thought to himself with a frown. It was true. Other people have pretended to be nice to him to get him to do something or try something against him. The latter was very rare and only happened once. Before anything could even happen someone dressed in black with a mask on stopped it. Whatever it was. Point is this has happened before and I don't want it to happen again. Kaio seems nice, but I'll wait a while before I decide anything about him. Finished with that line of thought, he looked up to see he was at Ichiraku. He walked in, took a seat, and waited for his Ni-chan to finish so they could go and do some gardening. The next day at the academy. It was about 15 minutes till the start of class. Not many people were in the classroom yet, not even Kurenai-sensei. Naruto was currently sitting in the same seat he was yesterday, which was at the top row 2 seats away from the window. He was just waiting for class to start since he didn't really have that much time to do anything. A few kids would look at him and he would stare right back before giving them a slight smile and looking out the window again. That's when he saw a group of people out there. It looked like a couple of girls and Kaio. Wonder what they're talking about. It's not really my business Naruto thought as his attention drifted elsewhere again. It was a little after that moment that Daichi and his friends walked in and started to cause a commotion. Where the hell is he? I'm going to beat that loser for yesterday. Daichi yelled out to everyone. Naruto got a bit of a sinking feeling in his stomach but kept his calm. One of the other kids then pointed up towards him. He's up there Daichi. Said boy and his friends looked to where the kid pointed and spotted Naruto. They all frowned sneered at seeing him but didn't do anything else. I don't care about the tomato right now, I'll get him later. I want to know where Kaio is. Daichi said, confusing everyone in the room. Naruto had to wonder just what it was that Kaio did since he was with the other boy for most of the day yesterday. Did someone call my name? Speak of the devil and it shall appear. Kaio walked into the room and looked around a bit before his gaze stopped on Daichi. A grin then worked its way onto his face despite the glare the small group was sending him. Well if it isn't Chiri-san, one. If you're looking for me then you must need me for something. I'll be glad to help you however I can. Io said with sarcasm rolling right off his tongue. This just caused Daichi to glare even harder at him, in turn making him smirk more and leaving Naruto to wonder what the hell was going on. Help. You were supposed to help by telling that tomato up there to get ready to fight after school yesterday during lunch. This caused said tomato's eyes to widen in surprise, but Daichi wasn't finished yet. Instead you snitched on me to Kurenai-sensei after school when I went to get him. What was that about, huh? He finished as he looked Kaio dead in the eyes. The entire class was watching this now, waiting to hear what was going to be said next. None more so than Naruto who narrowed his eyes as he tried to figure this all out. He was slowly starting to see the picture too. Well for one, I just like messing with you. I really don't know why you'd even believe me stupid, he. At this Daichi's friends had to stop him from charging Kaio right there. Second, I was just evening the score from last week when you got me detention with those stupid frogs of yours. So really we're even. Kaio finished with a big smile. Daichi got his friends to let him go and was now approaching the black-haired boy. You're dead Akachin, too. Daichi said while Kaio narrowed his eyes at the nickname. Is he really now? Just what were you planning on doing Daichi? A voice said from the doorway. Everyone froze before turning to the door and seeing Kurenai-sensei standing there with her eyes focused on the two boys who had the spotlight a moment ago. It's not what it looks like Kurenai-sensei. Daichi tried to explain but she wasn't hearing any of it. I saw and heard it for myself so don't even bother. That's another day of detention for you Daichi. And Kaio, you better behave yourself because I'm watching you today. One slip up and you're in here right next to Daichi after school. Is that clear? She said to the two of them. Crystal Kurenai-sensei. They both said at the same time. Good, now everyone get to your seat so we can start class. Everyone quickly did as she told them. With a sigh escaping her lips she started her class. Naruto was walking through the halls right now to get out of the building. It was lunch now and he had something to talk to Kaio about. He saw him head outside to eat and was going to follow him out. He finally made it to the hall leading to the doors, but before he got out he saw a couple of familiar girls standing next to the door. They were all in his class, but he was sure he saw the three somewhere else too, he just couldn't think of where. The three finally saw him and waved at him. Deciding to see what they wanted he stopped in front of them to talk. Is there something I can help you girls with? The redhead questioned as he looked at the three. The middle one had black hair and equally black eyes. The one on the left had brown hair and blue eyes. Finally, the one on the right had green hair with brown eyes. They're all really pretty. It's weird though, I didn't think anyone had green hair. Then again I can't really say anything about hair color, Naruto absently thought. The middle girl decided to take charge and speak. Actually we were wondering if you could answer a question. And just so you know, I'm Kazumi and these two are Misaki and Fumiko. Kazumi said. Misaki was on the right and waved when she was introduced, Fumiko doing likewise. It's nice to meet all of you. If you want to ask something then go ahead, I'll try to answer it. Naruto said smiling at the three girls. They smiled back as Kazumi asked her question. So is it true that you beat a Hyuga in a fight? That was one question that he definitely didn't expect. After all the only person he told that to was Kaio. Wait a minute. They're the girls that were talking to Kaio earlier, Naruto remembered. That meant that Kaio told them, but why? He narrowed his eyes as his fingers dug into his palm in anger. He needed to talk to Kaio right now. You heard that from Kaio, right? It wasn't really a question seeing as he knew the answer. The other three gasped when he said that. Does that mean it's true? I can't believe you beat a Hyuga. How cool. The three were speaking at the same time. He could barely make out what they were saying, not that he cared at the moment. Sorry, I got to go. With that he quickly made his way past the girls out the doors. There was someone he really need to talk to. It took Naruto a while to find him, but he finally did. He was currently sitting down and leaning against a tree while he finished what looked like a rice ball. Walking up to him he was seen by the other boy who waved him over. Hair Ed, over here. You want to take a seat? Kaio asked. As Naruto made it over to him he decided he'd get right to the point. What was that whole thing with Daichi about earlier? Naruto figured he'd start with something he already had an idea about. This, however, threw Kaio for a loop. What? His intelligent reply. Before class started, Daichi said you were supposed to tell me about a fight we were going to have after school. Naruto refreshed the other boy's memory. Oh, that. I told Chiri-san that I'd get you to fight him after school cause of that thing in class yesterday. Then after the bell rang I watched him leave and got Kurenai-sensei, so he'd get another detention. Ah, revenge is sweet. Kaio finished his little story. Naruto's eyes were like slits now. So you used me to get back at Daichi. And you didn't call out to get everyone's attention back on me after school? Naruto asked, which caused Kaio to look at him in confusion. Why would I've done that? And Daichi was trying to pick a fight with you. It'll be even harder now with 2 detentions, won't it? Naruto let it go for now. He'd come back to it, but he did have another question to ask anyway. What about those girls? How'd they know that I fought a Hyuga? This one got a weird look out of the other boy, so Naruto clarified who he was talking about. I ran into Kazumi and the other 2 in the halls. Those 3. Well, yesterday I heard them talking about how they wanted to know more about you. So I figured I'd make a deal. I tell them about how you jumped a year and they take all my notes for me so I can sleep in class. Kaio said. What? Naruto said with anger deep in his voice. Well, the exercises are fun, but the lectures are boring. This way I can sleep in class and still get all the material. They said they'd make notes for you too. Kaio finished with a grin. So you met me to get back at someone else and hung out with me to get info out of me? Naruto asked a bit harshly. Kaio flinched a little when he heard that. Not really. The Daichi thing was just spur of the moment and everyone would have heard about your fight with the Hyuga sooner or later. Hell, I'm surprised no one knew yet. As for the rest, I did like that book and really did have fun yesterday, so I don't see the big deal about all this. Kaio explained and defended himself. Naruto just continued to glare at him before letting off a big sigh and slumping his shoulders. He then looked up with tired, sad eyes that truly shocked Kaio. Naruto then simply walked past him, talking just loud enough to be heard. I guess you don't see it. I'm not surprised, no one ever does. When Kaio turned around, Naruto was already back inside the building. Just in time for the bell to ring. For the rest of the day Naruto avoided Kaio. Even after school when Kaio was waiting for him and asking to talk about it, Naruto just continued on. The only thing he was glad about was that he waited before making a decision about Kaio. But then again, should he really be glad that he was right to wait or disheartened that he was indeed right? And done. It's been roughly 2 weeks since Naruto and Kaio had their little chat. A lot has happened in such a short amount of time. Well, a lot for a child of Naruto's age at least. Not surprisingly, word got out to his class about how he skipped a year thanks to Kazumi and her 2 friends. Nobody really believed any of it to be true, but that couldn't stop a small part of them from wondering if it was actually indeed fact. Daichi was the only one to not give it any thought and said it was a complete lie, just Naruto trying to make himself sound tougher and cooler. On the other end of that though, there was a handful of people that completely believed it. One of them was Kaio, but Naruto was currently unaware of that as the two had yet to speak again. The other ones were surprisingly the 3 who started all the gossiping that was going around. One of which. You know you're never going to hit anywhere near the bullseye like that. Naruto felt a sigh escape him as he turned to his uninvited guest. What's wrong with how I'm doing this? He asked with a bit of annoyance. It was after school and Naruto had decided to get in some practice throwing kunai in a small training field the academy had. Normally it would be packed, but most kids were already at home or playing seeing as it was Saturday. Sunday was their only day off, so all the kids spent Saturday evening and Sunday just goofing off. Naruto, on the other hand, used this time to use the empty training field. Which he was doing when Kazumi decided to turn up out of nowhere and then start criticizing him. Well, for one thing, I know you're not supposed to snap your wrist. Kazumi answered. I also know that your stance is all wrong. She continued in a know-it-all type of tone. Really, and I suppose you know the right way to do it? Naruto asked as he stared at her. Kazumi responded with a big smile. Naturally. Naruto rolled his eyes as she asked a quick question. You're right-handed, right? At Naruto's nod she continued. Well, here's what you do. You stand with your right leg back and lean on the ball of that foot. Your left foot is flat on the ground and there should be about 2 feet between them. Then she paused as she saw Naruto raise his hand. After a second she asked. You have a question? Yeah. What if I can't get my feet 2 feet apart? Naruto asks of her in a serious manner. No, 2 of your actual foot, not 2 feet. At Naruto's expression a small sweat drop formed on the back of her head. Anyway, you want your feet at about the 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock spots. Then you bend your knees, especially the front one. You keep your right arm straight and pull it back in a round-like move. When you swing forward, you lean on your front foot and still keep your arm straight. You also don't move your shoulder, just your arm. When it's about at your chest you let go, but keep going with the swing. Follow through helps. Kazumi finished her explanation and moved to demonstrate. Picking up one of the kunai she did exactly as she just described. The kunai hit its mark, but 2 to 3 inches away from the bullseye. Wow, that was good. Naruto said as he watched the kunai fall out of the post. The kunai were slightly blunted, not so much as to stop them from sticking, but enough so the students wouldn't badly hurt themselves. They just needed some strength to stay in the target. But you missed the bullseye. Yeah, well, doing it right doesn't make it perfect. It makes it a lot easier, but I still got to practice. Kazumi defended herself a bit. I guess you're right, but either way you are better than me at this. Where'd you learn how to do it? Naruto asked his new throwing coach. Well, I am an Uchiha, throwing weapons is one of our many specialties. She stated proudly and a bit arrogantly. Really, my 2 cents taught me just last week. I'm still practicing it, but I think I've gotten pretty good. Not good enough to hit the center though. Naruto said with a smirk. Hearing this, Kazumi puffed out her cheeks and got a frown on her face. With a small glare she answered right back. Well, I don't see you doing any better. Is this the thanks I get for trying to help you out? Naruto couldn't help himself as he laughed at the face she was making. This only annoyed the girl more though, so after a few moments Naruto calmed himself down. Sorry, but I couldn't help myself. Though I need to ask, why are you helping me? He asked with some suspicion in his voice. Kazumi replied with a voice that was a little too innocent. I just happened to be walking around and I saw you having trouble. Being the person I am, I decided to help another struggling person in need. She said with a smile, batting her eyes for added effect. Naruto gave her a deadpan look, causing her to slowly drop the cute look. Not buying it, huh? Oh well. Truth is, I saw how sad and annoyed you were after everyone found out why you're in our class, and I felt a bit bad. That's not what I was sad about. Naruto said with a sigh. Kazumi gave him a puzzled look when she heard that. Then what were you sad about? It doesn't matter. What does is you. What did you really come to see me for? Naruto asked again. Kazumi looked a bit annoyed as she shuffled on her feet. That was the real reason. It just wasn't the only reason. She said as Naruto narrowed his eyes onto her. Seeing how you beat up a Hyuga, I figured you'd be good at Taijutsu. I could use some help with it, so I figured we could have a trade. I help you with your throwing and you help me with my fighting. Naruto didn't expect that. Raising one of his brows in a curious manner, he decided to see where this would go. I thought the Uchiha had their own taijutsu style, and what makes you think I could even help you with anything? We do have our own style, but it works best with the Sharingan, and I haven't activated it yet. So 2 cents said I should learn the academy style till I do awaken it. Kazumi clarified. Naruto still gave her a confused look. That's all really interesting, but I don't know the academy style well. This time Naruto clarified and Kazumi gave him the confused look. You got to know something. How else could you've won? Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I know a little bit. Just what I saw some of the older kids practicing. And when I needed help with it I asked my sensei from the first year. He helped me with what I saw, but told me to wait till I'm in the class that teaches it to learn the rest of it. So I know the basics, but that's all. The rest is just me guessing. He admitted with a big sheepish smile on his face. Kazumi was stunned. To win a fight when you're trained is one thing, but to win it while guessing what you're doing. He's got to be better than I thought. It sucks he can't help me much, but at least he can still help, she thought with a mental shrug. She decided to voice her thoughts. Even if it's not much, it can still help me. Besides, I already showed you how to throw right, so you owe me. Naruto just looked at her before he smirked. That's your problem, not mine. Kazumi got red in the face and had a slight twitch above her eye. What? Why you little, she was cut off as Naruto started laughing. I'm just kidding. I'll help you, but you gotta keep helping me too. He managed to get out between laughs, a smile on his face. Kazumi pouted at the joke being at her expense, but shook it off. With her own satisfied smile she said, deal. But that the two kept on training in the field. Naruto learning how to properly throw and Kazumi learning the first steps of the academy taijutsu style. Neither got too far with what they were doing, but it was the first day. In the end though, both of them were rather happy with the results of their encounter. At night. Naruto was currently laying in his bed, just staring at the ceiling lost in thought. Training with Kazumi had worn him out, but he was glad to have a training partner. At least somewhat, he still didn't know her that well. There was something that she said to him though that wouldn't leave him alone. It was something Kaio brought up as well, but he was too upset with the situation at the time to think on it afterwards. Now however. Why didn't anyone say anything or more people find out about that fight? Naruto had started wondering about that since he got home. When the fight happened there were a couple of other kids that saw it, not many but some. Plus the fact that both him and the other guy came to class the next day bandaged, why didn't anyone ask questions? At the time I was happy no one ever said anything. It made it easier to forget about it. But that doesn't make sense. Why didn't anyone talk about it or tell their friends or parents? I don't get it. And what's up with Kaio lately? Naruto wondered. He noticed about 5 days ago that Kaio was following him after school. He never got to close, he would just watch from a distance, but he did it every day since then. It creeped him out really. Plus, before Kaio started tailing him, Naruto saw Kaio talking to Am and Tucci after he came home from the training field last Saturday. It was really bothering him. Everything seemed to be bothering him lately. Before he could think on it anymore he heard a voice yell up from downstairs. Hey Naruto. It's getting late so lights out and go to bed. The voice said. Naruto responded equally as loud. Okay Tucci Jiji, got it. With that he turned off his light before pulling his blanket over himself. As he did he realized how tired he really was. As he lay in the dark with his mind slowly shifting from waking reality to dreaming illusion, he told himself that he'd think more about everything sometime later. The next afternoon. Right now Naruto was at the park. He came here to relax and find something to do since he was bored. He tried to play with some of the other kids, but he wasn't holding his breath on it. Neither were they since they said no and left him alone in the park as they went to play ninja in the alleys. It hurt, but it was hurting less each time. So he went to sit under a tree and was just looking up at the clouds, thinking of nothing and just letting his mind wander. He stayed like that for a while, just enjoying the peace that was so rare in the world of shinobi, not that he knew that. A short time had passed when he noticed 3 other boys entering the park. They were just chatting, but when they noticed him under the tree they started making their way to him. Really, Naruto himself wasn't sure how he avoided Daichi for 2 weeks. The first week was easy, seeing how he had detention every one of those days. After that it was just Naruto blending in with the crowds, leaving faster than him, using some of the backstreets he was familiar with, or just getting lucky. After all, if it was after school then Daichi had no idea where to find him if he didn't get him right away. This time though it seemed Daichi got lucky in picking the right park. Naruto stood up as the 3 boys approached him, Daichi being in the middle of the other 2. They stopped when they were just a couple yards away. Well looky what we got here. It looks like the tomato was enjoying a little sun. You're gonna need water too if you want to grow. Daichi said as all 3 of them started laughing. Naruto simply took it before smirking, his own comeback now in mind. At least I'll grow. Nothing can happen with Yuchiri-san cause you can't go any lower than dirt. The laughter died quickly, but the other two boys still had a few chuckles escape them. Daichi glared at Naruto. You're going to regret that one tomato. Why do you want to fight? What do you have against me? Naruto quickly asked, causing the other three in the park to pause. With a smile Daichi replied. I got nothing against you. I don't care about your stupid jokes or anything like that. You're only a kid who doesn't belong in our class. Really, I just don't like you. Nothing else to it. Naruto was a bit surprised at the reasoning of the older boy, but he didn't have time to think about it. Daichi came running at him with his fist cocked back fully intending to punch Naruto. When he was about a foot away Naruto dove to the right and rolled, coming to a stop on his hands and knees. He got back up fast, but as soon as he was standing again he jumped back to avoid a bum rush from the second boy. The third one came up from Naruto's left and threw a punch at the side of his skull. Ducking down enough for the fist to fly over him, Naruto raised his left elbow. The other guy slammed right into it using his own momentum and stopped, a small breath escaping him. As he was already on the ground Naruto shot out his left foot hitting the other boy on the shin. With the boy now off balance he swiped his leg in a counterclockwise arc, taking his opponent off his feet. Jumping back Naruto watched as the boy landed hard on his face before turning around to look for the other two. The baddie turned into a right hook courtesy of Daichi. Stumbling back a bit he regained himself enough to try to block the follow-up from Daichi. Using the back of his arm he attempted to deflect the hit away, but since Daichi is bigger and stronger, it still got him on the right shoulder. Wincing at the hit, he braced his right foot on the ground as he brought up his left knee to meet Daichi's stomach. It hit hard as Daichi took a step back. As he stopped to clutch his stomach Naruto threw a right haymaker, throwing his body into it since he was still balanced on his right foot. It hit Daichi hard right on the nose and sent him staggering away. He covered his face with his hands and Naruto could see something dripping between the fingers. Seems he gave Daichi bloody nose. Before he could think about it or do anything else he was kicked in the back by the second boy. He fell to the ground, stunned for a moment. As he tried to get up the third boy body slammed him, making Naruto give a yell of pain. The second boy came up to the two and grabbed Naruto's right arm while the third one got off him and took hold of his left. They picked him up and held him still as he tried to struggle free. The two boys though had the advantage of being older and bigger than him, so try as he might he couldn't get free. Naruto suddenly got the wind knocked out of him due to Daichi's fist embedding itself in his stomach. This was followed up by two punches to the face, one to his right eye, which was the same spot he got punched before, and another that would probably give him the same bloody nose Daichi was currently sporting. Daichi gave Naruto a smirk, which due to the blood, made it look somewhat fearsome. Ha! You beat a Hyuga, yeah right. You're hardly worth the effort it's gonna take to turn you into ketchup. He laughed, the other two too busy holding the red head to join him. Naruto looked up at Daichi and gave him a grin despite his situation. This coming from someone who needs two other people to fight me. If I am hardly worth it you must be worthless, seeing Naruto didn't get to finish since Daichi's fist decided to join the conversation. I wasn't gonna do much more, but that last one added a few more hits. Daichi said as he punched him again in the face. That was followed by one more to the stomach. As he was pulling back for a third hit, he got blindsided by someone. The two rolled on the ground for a second before coming to a stop, after which they started punching each other. The other three just stared at the scene for a second before one of the two guys holding Naruto noticed something. Is that Kaio? That was the last thing Naruto was expecting to hear. Deciding to put the whole subject of Kaio on the back burner for the moment Naruto focused on the two holding him. Picking the back of the second one's knee, said boy let go of him and dropped to a kneeling position. Rotating 90 degrees since his one arm was still being held, Naruto punched the third guy in the stomach with his right fist. Now free Naruto shoved the one he just punched a very short distance away to give himself some room. He then took 4 steps and jumped. He put his feet in front of him, bent his knees and drop-kicked his kneeling attacker. Using him like a springboard Naruto jumped off him and shouldered the one that was still standing close to him. All three of them hit the ground with a thud. Naruto was the first one to climb to his feet. The one that got slammed by his shoulder took a bit longer, giving Naruto a breather. The one that was drop-kicked just stayed on the ground. After catching his breath and while his opponent was still collecting himself Naruto attacked. He did a quick 1-2 to his stomach before uppercutting the older boy who was stunned by the combo. Naruto decided to finish it so he ran up to the other boy and jumped. He did a 360 spin, lashing out with his right foot which connected hard with the other fighter's face. Naruto landed on his left foot as the other one landed on his ass. He seemed happy to stay down. Naruto was breathing heavily by this point. He started to stumble over to tree before leaning on it and sliding down into a seated position. He just sat there for a moment taking in the fact of what just happened. After a few more deep breaths he looked up in time to see Daichi go down. Naruto managed to get a look at his face. Seems Kaio added two black eyes and a cut to his cheek. As he was on the ground, Daichi spared a glance in Naruto's direction and saw his two friends slowly getting up. Even though he saw them getting up, he knew they weren't going to fight anymore, judging by their groans of pain. Sloppily getting to his feet, Daichi turned in the opposite direction of Kaio and ran. His two friends saw this as they got to their feet. "Hey Daichi. Wait up, man." One of them called as they followed after their apparent leader. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief at seeing them leave. He decided to forget the tree and laid out on his back. Hearing footsteps, he looked up to see Kaio there. He had a busted lip and a bruise on his cheek and forehead. Naruto could only guess Daichi had butted him. The two stayed in silence for a while before it was broken by Kaio. "You look like shit, Red." He said it with a serious face. Naruto answered back equally as serious. "Look who's talking." The two continued to stare at each other before they both stared to crack up in a fit of laughter. It took the two a minute to get their laughter under control. When it was finally quelled, the two remained quiet for some time. This time it was Naruto who broke the silence. "Not that I'm not happy to see you, but what are you doing here?" he questioned as he looked at Kaio. Said person remained quiet and kept his eyes closed. When Naruto was starting to think that he fell asleep, he spoke up. "I wanted to talk to you. That's why I came, but then I saw Daichi and figured I'd give you a hand," he said. Naruto let out a sigh. "Thanks for the help, I really needed it." At Kaio's nod, he continued. "I wanted to ask you a couple questions too. Like, why were you following me this past week? And why were you talking to Amni-chan and Tsuchijiji?" Kaio looked at him in surprise before chuckling. "So you noticed, huh? Guess I wasn't all that sneaky after all." He let out a sigh of his own before continuing. "After the last time we talked, I tried to think of what it was that was bothering you, but I just couldn't figure it out. So I decided to ask the people you seemed closest to." Flashback. "So that's what has been bothering Naruto," AM said with a frown as she looked at Kaio. "Why would you do that to him?" "Do what?" Kaio asked the teenager. "I ended up helping him by getting Daichi detention. Plus he doesn't have to take notes anymore since the girls will take them." "What did I do wrong?" AM settled a glare on him as she responded. "You took advantage of him. You used him just so you could sleep in class." Kaio groaned. "Who cares if I sleep? I told you he made out pretty good too," he answered, still not seeing the problem. AM let out a frustrated huff, but before she could continue, her father beat her to it. "Calm down, AM, there's no reason to get so upset." "But Tusan, he." "I know, I've been standing right here. But you have to take into consideration that not only is Kaio a child, he doesn't really know anything about Naruto," Tucci said, cutting off his daughter. "How about you go do some dishes while I handle this?" "Hi Tusan." AM relented as she made her way into the kitchen, but not before giving Kaio one last look. He shivered when he saw it and promised himself to never piss her off again. Tucci laughed when he saw it. "Don't worry about her. She just really cares for Naruto and doesn't like seeing him hurt." "But how did I hurt him? Nobody's explaining that part," he asked the older man. Said old man just let out a sigh before looking around. Seeing it was only the two of them, he went ahead and started explaining. "Well, I'm not positive about everything, this is what I can tell you." Seeing he had the boy's attention, he continued. "Naruto doesn't have any friends. He still tries to play with some of the kids, but I don't think he's making any progress. The people all ignore him, and it seems the children are starting to as well." "What do you mean about people ignoring him?" Kaio asked. "Please just let me finish. I'll answer your questions at the end." Seeing a nod of confirmation, Tucci continued. "As I was saying, people and even the children now are starting to ignore him. Some, if not many, may even hate him for reasons well beyond him. Because of this, Naruto developed a certain type of view on life. He treats everyone equally and nice. You know the saying, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Naruto took that to heart. He tries his very best to be kind and polite to others because that's how he wants it to be for him. When he sees that despite this he still gets treated the same way, it hurts him. But it seemed that you two made a connection. You may have only known each other for a day or so, but you two just seemed to click. I think that made it hurt all the more. Do you understand that?" Tucci finished with a question. Kaio just sat there as he absorbed everything he was told. It was a lot to take in, but after a few minutes he hesitantly tried an answer. "So Naruto treated me nicely and trusted me with that story. Then I just threw it back at him and that's what hurt him," he half stated but more asked. "More or less." Tucci responded with a smile. "I'm glad you're starting to understand. But if you really want to get it, I suggest you follow him around a bit after school," he offered. Kaio gave the older man a strange look in return. "Why would I follow him around? Isn't that a little weird? If you do it, you'll understand. Just don't look at only Naruto, look at the people around him too," Tucci said. "Okay, I guess. I can do that. Good." Now I think you should get out of here, Naruto will be home soon. Home? Kaio questioned. You mean Naruto lives here? Seeing Tuchi's nod, Kaio gave him a surprised look. Sorry. I just thought he liked eating here, I didn't know you two were his family. There's no need to apologize. Besides, we're not his family per se. Seeing Kaio's "what the hell are you talking about" look, he decided to clarify. You see, we're Naruto's family in spirit. We aren't blood and we never adopted him. I'm his guardian and look after him. We all care for one another like a family though. I can understand that really well. Kaio said to himself with a smile. Tucci smiled at that before he started to make shooing motions. I'm glad, but it's getting late and I think it's time for you to get home. Just remember and do what I said, alright? He said as he started to make his way to the kitchen to help his daughter with the dishes. Kaio nodded to him even though he couldn't see it and hopped off the stool. I will, Gigi, and thanks a lot for all the help. He yelled into the kitchen before starting his way home. Flashback end. After that I followed you around from time to time to see what Tucci-sen was talking about. Kaio finished up his short story. He was sitting cross-legged on the ground in front of Naruto. The redhead managed to sit back up and was now leaning against the tree once more as he listened to what Kaio was saying. Not wanting silence to take over, Naruto spoke. So what did you find out? He tentatively asked. Kaio let a sigh escape his lips before looking away from Naruto. I'm sorry. It was spoken softly, but Naruto still heard it. What? Naruto honestly didn't think Kaio would apologize to him. He didn't seem like the kind of person who said sorry. Kaio just sighed again before looking Naruto in the eyes. I said I'm sorry. I saw the way everyone looked at you and treated you. I don't know how you don't just start throwing punches or rocks or something at those people. I get pissed off at the few who are like that to me. Kaio replied. Naruto's eyes shot wide open at that tidbit, which was impressive considering one of them was swollen up pretty nicely. What do you mean? Does everyone treat you the same way? Naruto asked. At that question the raven-haired boy scoffed. Hardly. Nearly everyone treats me normally. It's only some of the ninja that are assholes. He clarified. That only served to confuse Naruto more. Why would only ninja treat you differently? Hearing his own question and just how personal their conversation was getting, Naruto decided to try and stop it. Forget it, you don't have to answer that. Don't worry about. Think of it as my way of making it up to you. You told me a story and now I'll tell you one. It's kinda short though. Kaio said to the red-haired boy with a smile. Said redhead didn't know what to say to that, so Kaio continued. The reason some ninja don't like me is because I'm not originally from Konoha. And before you ask, I have no idea where I'm actually from. I was found on the side of the road one day by some merchants when I was a baby. This necklace and stone I wear is all I have of my real family. Anyway, the merchants brought me here and put me in an orphanage. That's not too odd, it seems to happen a lot from what I hear. But apparently I was the first foreign orphan to be allowed to enter the academy for a really long time. I guess the ninja think I'll turn on them or something, maybe think I'm a spy. But that's stupid. I was found when I was a baby, how could I be a spy? Kaio took a calming breath before finishing. Well, that's my story. Told you it was short, though not anywhere near as bad as what you got. Naruto just sat there as he took it all in. Even if it was to a much lesser extent, Kaio still knew what it was like to be an outcast like him. He knew what it was like to be an orphan and not have a clue as to who your parents are. They were more like than he thought. Despite not wanting to ask it, Naruto really wanted to know. Do you still live at the orphanage or were you adopted? At the question, Kaio gave him a smirk. Neither. An old man took me in but never adopted me. Kind of like you with Tucci-san and Am-san. Here he gave a pause. Then again, I doubt those two make you work for them when you're not at school or training. No, they don't. Naruto answered with a small sweat drop. Silence settled between the two again, but this time not nearly as unbearable as before. Naruto was just thinking over everything that happened when he heard Kaio's voice. Hey Naruto. You said that you wanted to be Hokage, right? It was more of a statement than a question. Naruto just raised a brow at the random question, but answered anyway. Yeah. I want to be a great Hokage like the Sandame and Yondame. Why? Well, that old man I live with asked me a good question. He asked me what I wanted to get out of being a shinobi and do as a shinobi. I didn't have an answer for him when he asked, but I think I might now. At least a part of it anyway. Kaio said. And? What's your answer? Naruto asked, wanting to hear his answer. I want to be the top Anbu commander in all of Konoha. That would make me the Hokage's right-hand man too. So what do you say, Ed? What to help each other become the two most baddest ninja in the Leaf Village? Kaio said with a grin stretched over his face. Naruto looked like a deer caught in the headlights. He had no idea what to say to that. All he could do is lower his head so his bangs covered his eyes. Despite that, Kaio still managed to see a few teardrops fall to the ground but decided not to say anything. After about 3 minutes Naruto rubbed his eyes and cleared away the tears, along with some blood. Looking at the blood on his hand for a moment Naruto then smiled and stood up. "That sounds great, but before we do that we gotta do something else first," he said. Kaio just looked perplexed as he too stood up. It was then that Naruto reached up to his face again and wiped away some of the blood. With the blood still on his hand he stuck it out. "Hello, my name's Uzumaki Naruto. You want to be friends?" He said it as he smiled at the other boy. Kaio looked at Naruto for a second before his grin came back full force. He reached up to his bloody lip and got some on his hand. He then clasped that hand with Naruto's own slightly blood-covered one. "My name's Ikazuchi Kaio and I'd like it if we could be friends." At that Naruto's smile covered his whole face. This was the true start of a friendship that would change the very future of the shinobi world itself. Finished. Naruto stifled a yawn as he continued to walk down the street on his way to school. He was up late last night practicing the leaf concentration exercise, or at least he was trying to. His mind kept wandering away from the task no matter how hard he tried to keep it there. It wasn't anything specific that was distracting him either, just bits and pieces of the last 2 years. He would think of the new friends he's made, though not many in number there was more than a handful. He thought of his ongoing feud with Daichi and how annoying it is to avoid him so as not to fight. He thought about his rival, one he made out of a classmate that he constantly competed with. To be fair though it was mainly one-sided on the other's part. He thought about the academy and all the things he's learned and all the training he's done. He also recalled his two best friends, Kaio and Kazumi, infiltrating their way to the forefront of his mind. When the name of his best female friend popped into his head, he couldn't stop the small blush that made its way onto his face. The two had become training partners after they taught each other what they could of kunai throwing and taijutsu. They would spar a bit, train, help each other study for classes, and Kazumi even helped Naruto unlock his chakra. Actually, since everything has chakra and all you need to do is find the correct balance of physical and mental energies, perhaps decipher is a better word. Anyway, the two had become rather close, and Naruto couldn't help but to develop a small crush on the girl. Of course he hid it rather well, and no one else knew about, no one, but Kaio that is. He just seemed to be an open book to the older boy, but then again it's the same the other way around too. Before his mind could wander further off the beaten path, he heard a bell ring and looked up. Blinking in surprise Naruto realized he was already at the gate of the academy, just in time for the first bell too, judging by the slow pace of the other students. Shaking his head to try and clear it he continued in towards his class. "I'm getting lost in thought thinking about thoughts that I've already thought." He paused for a second at that. "Wait, yeah, that was right. A bit weird but right I think." Deciding to mull over whether he was right or not later he made his way towards the entrance. "Hey Naruto. Wait for us." Turning to look at who was calling him he spotted Misaki and Fumiko making their way to him. He smiled as he stopped to wait for the two to catch up. He got to know the two better thanks to Kazumi, and they ended up becoming pretty fast friends. Though Misaki was a little too energetic for anyone to spend any extended period of time with, he did his best. It took but a moment for the two to catch up to him, and when they did they all started towards their class again. "Thanks a lot for waiting Naruto-kun. Fumi-chan and I have been looking everywhere for you." Naruto raised a brow as Misaki continued. "Yeah, we were wondering if the lilacs in your garden are ow." "Fumi-chan, what was that for?" Misaki questioned after Fumiko elbowed her in the ribs. "Once you start talking about flowers it's hard to get you off them. Besides, that's not what we were going to ask him," Fumiko told her green-haired friend. Naruto all the while was content just sitting back and listening to them talk to one another. Misaki frowned at the other girl as she spoke. "I know that. I just don't think it's a big deal. It's probably some clan business they don't want us hearing. Maybe some super secret meeting about how to patent their glare, cause I've seen some Hyuga throwing that around lately. Or maybe they're all doing some super secret eye training or something," she said. As she kept rambling about other secret stuff it could be, Naruto figured now was a good time to enter the conversation since he had an idea of who it was about. "Are you two talking about Kazumi?" he asked as he took a seat. The two looked at him before looking around and saw that they were in the classroom. Taking the two seats to his right Misaki answered him, both of them trying not to think about how they missed climbing up the stairs to get to their seats. "Yeah, we were. How'd you know that?" "She's the only person any of us know that's part of a clan," was his simple answer. "Oh. You're good. Maybe. Or maybe you're a bit slow," Fumiko teased the other girl. Before Misaki could retort she quickly elaborated for Naruto. "We came to see if you've seen her. Neither of us has seen Kazumi all week, actually I think it's been over a week. We tried going to the Uchiha district to see her, but the place is blocked off by ninja. Even some Anbu. We're worried about her so we're trying to see if anyone's seen her. So have you?" "I told you it's nothing to worry about." She's probably Naruto drowned out the rest of whatever it was that Misaki was going to say to focus on the subject at hand. Naruto thought back to the last time he saw Kazumi, even if it was only in passing. It's been about 9 days, he thought to himself. His face became blank, the normal face he makes when thinking. I haven't seen her in over a week, not even in class. And those two are her best friends. If they haven't seen her, then I doubt anyone has. A stray thought suddenly entered his head, making his eyes widen before narrowing into slits. I haven't seen any of the Uchiha clan this past week. Not a single one. That, considering the size of the clan, was a little disturbing. He continued to ponder that for a while, but was literally shaken out of it by Misaki. "Boy, wake up Naruto. Sensei's here." Turning to the front of class, Naruto saw that she was speaking the truth. As he waited for his sensei to speak, he realized that it was most likely this man that was making him reminisce. The man was in his late 20s, if not already in his 30s, and was rather big. He had brown hair that was covered by his bandana like Hittite and a round face. He had a small goatee, a big nose, and wore standard Chunin attire. This was their new sensei Funeno Tokoku. Kurenai sensei had left just under 2 weeks ago, and everyone still missed her, Naruto especially. Kurenai had helped Naruto out whenever he asked for it and never hesitated or looked at him with indifference. She had gained a bit of his respect. She even treated him to ramen a few times after helping him out, though he wasn't sure why. However, with this new sensei, Naruto didn't know how he'd be to him. Both of his past senseis had been nice, but he's seen how some of his teachers look at him. He figured he was just remembering some of the good times of class in case they came to an end. He grimaced a little at that thought. I should try being more positive and help but wonder what Kurenai sensei is doing now, though rumor was she became a guard or maybe an escort for some young Hyuga. It is a rumor, so it's likely just false gossip. As he refocused on his sensei again, he found himself stopping cold. Said sensei had on a grim face and was patently waiting for the class to settle down, which amazingly it was. Naruto suddenly felt a chill go up his spine and got a very bad feeling in the pit of his stomach at seeing that face. When everyone got quiet, Tokoku finally spoke, Naruto being sure to pay rapt attention. "Alright class, listen up. I'm afraid I have some very tragic news." At that, every student had their full focus on their sensei. A little over a week ago something happened within Konoha. It has been under investigation since then, with knowledge of it on a need-to-know basis only. However, today the Hokage has deemed it time to let the village know. I'm telling you this now, and later today he is going to make an announcement to all the civilians by the Hokage Tower before class lets out. He stopped here to close his eyes and let out a sad sigh. Opening them again, he looked at every person in the room before speaking what happened. 9 days ago the entire Uchiha clan was killed. Silence. Complete and utter dead silence was followed after that statement as the children tried to comprehend what was just said. Many looked shocked, some looked sad as they realized what that meant for one of their classmates. A random student spoke up. "You're joking, right, sensei? There's no way the Uchiha clan could be killed. Aren't they like the best?" Dakoku's face was like stone. "I'm not joking. This has really happened." He stopped himself from saying anything else to let the information really sink in. "Okami? Does that mean Kazumi?" Fumiko couldn't even finish her sentence as tears started to flow from her eyes. Misaki was already crying, though it seemed she was struck speechless at the thought her friend couldn't finish. As for Naruto. "Sensei." His hand slammed on the desk as he bolted up out of his seat. Everyone's attention now on the youngest person in the room. Was every Uchiha killed? Everyone in the whole clan? Naruto's voice wavered as he asked that. Dakoku just let out another sigh before answering. "I'm sorry class, but it's been confirmed that Uchiha Kazumi was killed along with her clan," he said to everyone, even though his gaze never left Naruto's own. How was it confirmed? How the hell did this happen anyway? Naruto had never felt like this before. He was usually always calm, or at least always looked calm. That part though was now long gone. Now there was a part of him that couldn't accept what he'd been told, it was in disbelief. Another part wanted to just start crying out loud and not stop. Then there was anger. For what he didn't know, and at the moment he didn't care. He had to let something out, and anger was the first one there waiting for release. It was confirmed when her body was found. That shut up any retort he could have come up with. As for how it happened, I don't know. Like I said, it's been under investigation and the specifics haven't been released to anyone yet. Naruto wanted to say something more, but he couldn't. The only thing he was thinking was that her body was found. That was indefinite proof. She's dead. Kazumi's dead. That thought zapped away any anger he might have still had. Disbelief and sadness washed over him as he dropped into his seat. He wore a shocked and pained expression as that thought kept repeating in his head. Ikoku only watched on as what he said sunk into the class. He gave them several minutes to sit and think about it. Some were talking with other classmates, some were crying, and it looked like a few didn't know what the hell to do. He couldn't blame them, but there was still something he had to say. Taking a breath he yelled out. Class. No matter what anyone was doing before, they all were looking at their sensei now. I know you're not going to want to hear anything I'm about to say, but I'm afraid it needs to be said. He sighed for a third time before he scanned over the room. Seeing everyone still paying attention to him, he continued. We are all a part of the village hidden among the leaves. No matter how we feel towards one another, we are all comrades. A single death of one of our own affects and hurts us all. However, since we belong to a hidden village, we are also shinobi, and as shinobi, we must face death every time we are on a mission or out of the village. We are willing to give our lives for our home, even if it means some pain must be endured. Unfortunately, sometimes death strikes much closer to home than we'd like. This is an example of that. He paused here to let them absorb what he was saying. He continued not long after. Truth is, you never really know when you'll be exposed to death. We had hoped it wouldn't be until after you were ninja that you would feel the pain of loss, but it couldn't be helped. All you can do is take this as a lesson. As a shinobi, there will be death. Sometimes caused by you and sometimes to people you know. It is a real fact that will happen. I know you're all young, but if that's something you can't deal with, it would be best for you to stop trying to be a ninja. Because when you are a ninja, there will be some good times, but there will also be many, many bad. Death is always following us shinobi, always. With that he finished his speech. The class could only look at their sensei with wide-eyed shock at what he just said. Was he serious? Just up and quit like that? Before anyone could ask, he started talking again. I don't want anyone to say anything. This is all a lot to take in, so you'll all have time to think about it later. The academy is going to be closed for the next few days, so things can be taken care of and sorted out. Fact is, all classes that had an Uchiha in them are getting the same speech I just gave you. The other ones are going to find out what happened when they get home and are currently going about a normal day. Turning around, he walked up to the chalkboard and started writing a list. While writing, he spoke to the class without facing them. Now for the rest of class, I'm going to review the shinobi rules and what it means to be a ninja. I'm not expecting anyone to participate, but it would be wise to listen. And with that, class continued on, even if no one was really paying attention. They all whispered amongst themselves about what they learned. Only 3 kids were quiet in the whole class, and one of them was silent. Misaki and Fumiko were both crying, and to Naruto it looked like they weren't sure what to do with themselves. He then turned and started staring out the window, looking out into nothing before he saw his own reflection. Looking at it, he had to ask himself, when did I start crying? Afternoon the next day. It was a bright and sunny day. There were only a few clouds in the sky that were riding on the passing breeze as the leaves whistled when they were hit with a brief wind. There were some small animals in the field and by the training posts, but other than that it was completely empty. Empty with the exception of a young red-haired boy that was laying in its center. Naruto had a conundrum on his hands, he didn't know what to do. He'd been here for quite some hours trying to figure out what to do. After class had let out yesterday, he wandered around with no real aim. He did see that much of the village seemed to be in mourning. Apparently his sensei was right about everyone finding out about the Uchihas before class let out. Eventually he got tired of wandering and went home. All he remembers after that was sitting on his bed, then waking up this morning. Guess he was more tired than he thought. After waking up, he decided to come to the academy training ground since school was out and nobody would be there. Plus, this is where he first really met Kazumi. And so here he is. Laying on an empty field with absolutely no idea what to do. He let out a sigh and closed his eyes. As he felt himself drifting off to sleep, he realized the sun was no longer in his eyes. Opening them, he saw he was in someone's shadow. Before he could turn to see who it was, the person spoke up. "Hey Ed. How you doing?" Instantly recognizing the voice, Naruto stayed in his laying position as he answered. "Not that good. I've definitely been better." "Yeah, I figured. I heard what happened at the village gate. Also got a few details from Misaki and Fumiko. Mainly Fumiko. Yeah. Not sure what I should be doing right now. I'm glad to see you, Kaio. When did you get back?" Naruto questioned his best friend. Kaio merely shrugged his shoulders before walking over to Naruto and taking a seat next to him. "We got back this morning. It's about 3 o'clock now." That surprised Naruto. He didn't think he'd been out here that long. "The trip was alright, but I still don't see why I needed to go. The old man could have handled it himself." "Really now? Is that the thanks I get for trying to broaden your knowledge of the world? You're an ungrateful brat, you know that." A gruff voice said. "Yeah, I know. You tell me at least 3 times a day, you old fossil." Kaio replied back with a sigh. Naruto sat up when he heard the voice and looked over in its direction. Seeing who it was, he greeted him. "Hello, Tetsubin-san. How are you doing?" Tetsubin Isamu was a man a bit older than the Sandaime. However, despite his age, he was still rather muscular even though he was on the short side. He had a white goatee on his wrinkled face, which was the only hair on his head. Naruto had met Isamu a couple of times before when he hung out with Kaio. The old man was apparently the best blacksmith Konoha had to offer despite his age. He could make anything you wanted and make it strong in record time. About 2 weeks ago he left to go get some supplies from the land of iron and decided to take Kaio with him. It appears that they're back. Now what have I told you about that? Call me Isamu or even Jiji. I'm not one for formal shit, especially from a youngin', Isamu said. Kaio gave him a look. What about all the crap you give me? You need to learn manners Naruto already has. Besides, it's fun messing with you. He ended with a laugh. Kaio knew nothing he said would have done anything, so he merely mumbled stuff about Isamu under his breath. Naruto was looking at the old man with sad expression. Kaio said you guys heard about everything. How can you laugh knowing what just happened? Isamu stopped his laughter when he heard the question and got quiet. He seemed to be collecting his thoughts. After a moment he spoke, his eyes gazing directly into Naruto's own. You're right, we do know about what happened to the Uchiha. And while Kaio went to talk to those two girls I stopped by Ichiraku's. I heard from Tucci that you took the news pretty hard. You know Tucci Jiji? Naruto asked by way of interruption. Yeah, I do. We don't see each other much, but we're still friends. Isamu answered. Anyway, after hearing that both Tucci and I decided it would be good for you to have some company. So that's why I'm here, but why did you tag along, old man? Kaio asked his caretaker. I was getting to that. I swear I'll teach you patience one day, even if it's the last thing I do. He proclaimed. Kaio just scoffed. At your age it might be the last thing you ever do. He was rewarded with a slap to the back of the head. As I was saying, Kaio is going to keep you company for the rest of the day. I'm here to bestow a bit of wisdom upon you two boys. What kind of wisdom? Naruto asked. The kind you can take to heart and carry with you till the day you die. Seeing both boys paying close attention to him, he continued. Both of you boys are orphans. You know what it's like to be alone and have no one there for you. Neither of you has ever felt the pain of loss yet, at least until now. What's the difference between the two? They both hurt a lot. Naruto asked the older man. That's something you'll find out on your own. It's different for everyone, how you deal with the loss of family or friends. The important thing to remember though is to never forget them. He paused here and got a far-off look in his eye. I'm getting on in my years. I've seen nearly everyone close to my die, whether by time, war, or something else. I'm not going to lie, even now it hurts like a bitch. But when I think of all the good times between us all, I can't help but smile and laugh. That's all you can do really, remember the good times and never forget them. You never get used to death, but you can learn to accept it. The two took a second to take in what was just said. Naruto was pondering it, while Kaio gave Isamu a look. Where the hell did that come from? Isamu laughed. Ahahaha. I like having my fun, boy, but I know when to get serious. Especially in a situation like this. He kept on chuckling. Naruto's voice suddenly cut in. So remember the good times, and it makes it better. Nothing but time can make it better, and even that's debatable. It does however make it easier. Isamu told Naruto. Naruto nodded his head as he closed his eyes. He tried doing what he was told. Remember some good times flashbacks. I'm telling you everything will be fine. Just watch out for Misaki, she can catch some people by surprise. Kazumi told Naruto. She can't be that bad, can she? Kazumi turned from looking at Naruto to face forward. As he went to do the same. Hello. AHHH. Naruto jumped back about 4 feet and saw the megawatt smile of the green-haired girl he saw in the hall before. As he calmed his breathing he made to say hello back, but she beat him to the punch. You're that little kid we told everyone about. I think it's so cool that you actually beat up a Hyuga. So how'd you do it, huh? Did you cheat? Did you surprise him? Have some help? Well, answer me. She somehow managed to string all that into a single breath. Naruto looked on confused as Kazumi laughed at him. I told you so. Boy, what did you tell him? By the way, what you doing together? Misaki asked. I'd like to know that too. The brown-haired girl, Fumiko if Naruto remembered correctly, said as she walked up to everyone else. We're training partners now. Kazumi clarified. I figured you guys would meet him sooner or later, so why not now? Being friends with the smart kid everyone's talking about. Cool. I'm Misaki, wanna hang out with us after school? My name's Fumiko. It's nice to meet you. Naruto smiled at them as he answered. I'm Naruto. It's nice to meet you too, but I was going to practice with Kaio after school. He told them. Then he can come too. Come on, it'll be fun. Misaki said. Before Naruto could answer, Kazumi beat him to it. They'll be there, I'll make sure of it. Can't have our new friends feeling left out, can we? Hearing her say that put a smile on Naruto's face, and he realized he didn't have it in him to try to refuse. Come on Naruto, you almost got it last time. Take a couple breaths and try again. Kazumi instructed and encouraged Naruto. For his part he was doing well. Every kunai he threw was close to the bullseye, but he had yet to hit the bullseye itself. Doing as he was instructed, he took a few deep breaths and focused. He got ready and threw his arm forward. The kunai sailed through the air and impacted the target with a thud. It hit dead center. Naruto had on a smile as he looked at his work. It really wasn't anything big, but it was an accomplishment. Alright, you did it. Nice throw. Kazumi congratulated him. Naruto's smile turned into a small grin as he high-fived his friend. It was thanks to you. What should we do now? I can practice this on my own now, and you already learned what I could show you of the academy Taijutsu. What's next? He questioned the older girl. Well, we have a test on chakra theory in 2 days, want to study for that? I mean, we're already training partners, how about study partners? Sounds like fun, partner. Naruto said as they went to get some books to study. Naruto with a smile splitting his face in two. Before I try again, can you explain it one more time? Naruto asked the two sitting next to him. Kazumi sighed before giving the third person the spotlight. I explained the best I could last time. Your turn to give it a shot, Kaio. We just started not too long ago. Don't tell me the great Ichigo has at her wit's end already. He said with a smirk. Seeing her brow twitch in irritation, he quickly defended. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Turning to Naruto, he got to work. Okay, to get to your chakra you need to combine your physical and mental energies. To get your mental energy going you only need to focus, which shouldn't be a problem since you've been doing the leaf concentration. Getting your physical energy is just as easy. Pretend you're about to get into a big fight. In anticipation for that fight you tense up and gather your energy. Then you combine them. Be sure to use the chakra gathering hand seal too, it makes it easier. He finished. That's basically exactly what I said. How about trying something more original? Kazumi told Kaio. He sighed at the girl before starting up again. Fine. What I do is I imagine my physical energy as a door. Then my mental energy becomes a key to that door. I put the key into the keyhole, and when I turn it, that's the energies mixing together. To bring out my chakra I open the door after I unlock it. Was that any better, princess? Actually yes it was. I'm a bit surprised. How about you give it a try, Naruto? Kazumi encouraged him. Nodding at the girl, he closed his eyes and tried to visualize what he was told. It took a while, but eventually he saw a door appear within his mind. It was a lot harder trying to get the key to manifest. Remembering the leaf concentration exercise, he focused solely on one spot. A minute later the key appeared in front of the door. After that it got much easier. He was able to easily unlock and open the door. Seemed he just had some trouble calling forth the two energies separately. Opening his eyes he saw the shocked expressions of his two friends. Thanks a lot for the tip, Kaio, it really helped. Naruto told him with gratitude. Turning to Kazumi he added, thanks for all your help too. I really appreciate it. Sure, they answered at the same time before a big smile worked its way onto Kazumi's face. She ran over to Naruto and gave him a big hug. Now it was Naruto's turn to be surprised as Kaio started to smirk at them. Yeah. You did it, Naruto. That means Fumiko lost the bet. She said as she laughed. That last part made Naruto stiffen as he asked her. What do you mean bet? You bet on me? He asked with a low voice. Kaio flinched when he heard that, remembering his own deal he made on the redhead. Yup. I bet that by the end of the week you'd unlock your chakra. Fumiko said no one could do it that fast and we bet. Now I won and she has to treat us to ramen. Hearing that she bet on him to win made him feel a little better, but hearing about free ramen was enough for him to let it slide this time. Where are we going again? Naruto asked Kazumi as they walked through the village. I told you, Kaio said that Isamu-san has something he wanted to show us. He says it's a masterpiece. Then why does he want a couple of kids checking it out? How am I supposed to know? Just lighten up and go with it. I bet it's going to be awesome. Kazumi said. The rest of the short walk they had was in silence, Naruto staying tense the whole trip. They finally made it to Isamu's house shop and entered. It was pitch black inside, a drastic contrast to the sunny outside. If he wanted to show us something, why is it so dark? He asked no one. Kazumi decided to answer anyway. It wouldn't be much of a surprise otherwise. She said with a grin as she flipped the lights on. Surprise. That word described not only the situation, but Naruto perfectly. He was stunned. In front of him were all his friends. There was Kaio, Misaki, Fumiko, two other boys from class, Tuchi, AM, Isamu, Kazumi who had joined the small group, Kurenai much to his continuing surprise, and even the Hokage. As one they all said, "Happy birthday, Naruto." Everyone. Was all he could say as a teardrop made its way down his face. Flashbacks end. Opening his eyes, Naruto couldn't keep the smile off his face even if he tried. Seeing this caused Isamu to form his own smile and Kaio to wonder what Naruto had thought about. Feel any different? Like a small weight's been lifted off your shoulders? Isamu asked Naruto. He nodded his head. Yeah. It still hurts, but not as bad. Accepting death, huh? Guess as a shinobi I should remember that. He told himself. The old man merely chuckled at him. You remember that, boy, and you'll be far ahead of all the ninjas your age. Pausing to crack his neck, he figured it was time to leave. I think I've been here long enough. Still got work to do after all. I'll be seeing you later, Naruto. With that he started walking away. Thanks, Isamu-san. Naruto called out to him and got a nod in return. With that he laid back down on the grass and stared at the sky. Kaio stayed sitting up and a comfortable silence descended. Eventually they started some small talk, but nothing much. They stayed there for a few hours before heading home. Naruto feeling quite better than he had that morning. 3 weeks later. It had been a long couple of weeks for Konoha. With the Uchihas gone, the ninja had to work even harder to cover the now vacant work spots. Business also took a blow. Losing an entire clan that shops within the village can take a lot away from business. Plus there's the moral of the village, everyone is saddened by such a loss. There was a memorial service done sometime last week, one that Naruto attended. Nobody said anything to him or even looked at him. Though considering the circumstances he could understand. It was at the memorial where he got a glimpse of the sole survivor of the attack. He couldn't recall the boy's name, but he certainly didn't envy him. I mean, losing your whole family like that, damn. Time, however, marches on, and the academy was once again open. Had been for a while really, but that's a minor detail. Naruto was on his way when he spotted someone familiar. Deciding to say hi, he began to jog towards the person. Hey, Kurenai-sensei. Long time no see. He said when he got within hearing range. Kurenai turned to see who called her and smiled upon seeing her former red-haired student. Why hello Naruto-kun. How have you been lately? I doing alright. Better than I was anyway. Now that she had turned he saw that there was someone else with her. It looked to be a girl his age with dark blue hair that reached her eyebrows and stayed that level all around her head, with the exception of 2 bangs framing her face. She had fair skin and seemed to be shy, judging by how close she was to Kurenai. Her most notable feature were her eyes. They were whitish lavender, and he could only just barely make out the pupils. The Byakugan, that means she's a Hyuga. Crap, he had nothing against the Hyugas, he was only hoping they had nothing against him either. Kurenai saw Naruto look at the girl and decided to introduce them. Naruto, this is Hyuga Hinata. Hinata, this is Uzumaki Naruto. He was a student of mine when I was an academy teacher. She finished introductions. Hinata just seemed to shy away more. Wasn't it in Uzumaki Naruto that hurt Nijinai-san a long time ago? The question made Naruto flinch a little. Kurenai frowned when she heard it and decided to play peacemaker. Yes, you're right, Hinata. But before anything else, how about you hear his side of the story? Looking at Naruto, she gave him a small, encouraging smile. Naruto for his part only let out a sigh before getting it over with. About 2.5 years ago Niji and I were in the same class. Despite being a year younger than him I always scored higher. One day he challenged me to a fight to prove he was better. I refused, but he refused my refusal and attacked me. At first it was self-defense, but after a while it turned into a brawl. I didn't mean to hurt him and I felt really bad about it. I still do a little bit. A very little bit. He said as he looked at Hinata. Hinata listened to the story before looking to Kurenai for confirmation. Seeing the older woman nod, she stepped a bit away from Kurenai, but still staying pretty close to her. You sound like you're sorry, so I guess it's alright. Naruto smiled before he heard Kurenai clear her throat. You two can continue to get acquainted on the way to the academy. Now let's be on our way. The 2 children agreed and the 3 made their way to the academy. As they were walking, Hinata kept sneaking glances at Naruto every so often. He noticed it and after the 4th look he called her on it. Is there something I can help you with? She let out a small leap and quickly looked away. Naruto was confused by the whole thing, but let it go. Kurenai on the other hand nudged Hinata with her hand, pointed to Naruto, and nodded. Feeling a bit more courageous she made conversation. So you beat Nijinai-san in a fight. You must be really strong. She said it quietly. In fact Naruto barely heard it. Yeah, I beat him, but it was only one fight. Plus he's probably gotten stronger now too. I'd likely still win, but it might be close. He admitted to the girl. Said girl looked at him in admiration before she adopted a downtrodden expression. The quick mood swing nearly threw Naruto for a loop. I wish I was that strong and confident. She said to herself. Naruto gave her a look. Then do it. He said. She looked at him in surprise before answering. I can't. I'm not strong, I'm weak. Then get stronger. It takes work, but it isn't that bad. If you want I could help you out after classes. He suggested to the Hyuga heiress. A suggestion that left her momentarily speechless, one that Kurenai capitalized on. She'd love to. I'm sure I can work something out with her father as well. Though it might not happen for a few days. She told the two as they passed the academy gate. Hinata's head snapped up to look at her escort in surprise. Kurenai merely gave her a small smile. That's fine with me. I'll meet you sometime after school then. He started to walk off but stopped as an idea entered his head. Actually, if you don't mind I could join you guys walking here in the morning if you want. He suggested another idea. We'd like that, wouldn't we, Hinata? Yes, that would be nice. Thank you, Naruto-san. She was looking at the ground as she said this. Hey, no problem. What are friends for? See you later, Hinata. Naruto smiled as he walked off to class. Hinata, who looked up in surprise when he called them friends, was now sporting a light blush on her face. Kurenai barely managed to suppress a chuckle as she led Hinata to her classroom. Lunch, same day. It was already halfway through lunch and Naruto had recently finished his meal. Now he was tossing a kunai in the air and catching it. He kept on doing this until about the 7th time. On the 7th catch he tossed the kunai to a nearby tree, hitting a leaf that was 3/4 of the way to the ground. He stood there for a minute before turning around. I know you're there. I heard you earlier so come on out. Naruto exclaimed to the corner of the academy building. From around the corner came a boy Naruto's age. He possessed spiky black hair that had a blue tint to it. His hair was especially spiked in the back and it framed the sides of his face. He had onyx black eyes and lighter skin than most people he's seen. It took only a second for Naruto to recognize him. You're that Uchiha from the memorial. Is there something I can help you with? He questioned the last Uchiha of Konoha. The boy merely kept walking until they were just a few feet apart before speaking. Are you Uzumaki Naruto? He asked. Seeing a nod he asked, the same Uzumaki Naruto that's 2 years ahead of the class he's supposed to be in. Seeing another nod he gave Naruto a once-over. I guess the red hair was a dead giveaway, but I wanted to be sure. And what do you want with me, Uchiha, that you're searching for me? Naruto asked right back. Said Uchiha locked eyes with him before he started explaining. I've heard that you're strong. You're supposed to be the best in your class despite being the youngest and you've even defeated a Hyuga in a fight. Is that all true and are you really that strong? He started questioning again. Yeah, it's all true. He answered with narrowing eyes. And I am the best in my class, but I don't see what any of that has to do with you. At night, I couldn't do anything. I was helpless as everyone around me died. He clenched his hands into fists as he continued. While I was in the hospital I decided. I need to get stronger so I can avenge my clan, my family, and I want you to help me. Well, it was a statement, it sounded more like a plea. Naruto, for his part, only rose an eyebrow when he heard that. Despite really wanting to know the specifics of what happened to the Uchiha clan, he kept it to himself. No reason to throw salt in fresh wounds. Thinking about it for a moment he answered the other boy. I'm sorry about what happened, but I don't really think I could help you out that much. If you need more training either wait till you're in the classes I'm taking or ask one of the senseis. I don't want you to train me in anything. That one caught Naruto by surprise. Then what do you want? I can train myself. There are still scrolls in the clan compound I can use. I want you to be my sparring partner. You're strong and I'm going to need someone strong to contend with. So what do you say? The young Uchiha asked. Naruto decided to mull it over in his head. On one hand more training partners was always better and he might eventually be able to find out what happened to the clan. On the other hand he seemed kind of demanding and moody. He did just lose his clan, so I can't blame him deciding on what he was going to do he spoke up. Alright I'll help you out, but there are 2 things I want to know. The other boy seemed to hesitate briefly before agreeing. First one is simple. What's your name? Realizing he never gave Naruto his name caused the Uchiha to very lightly blush in embarrassment. Regaining himself he answered. Uchiha Sasuke. Committing the name to memory Naruto asked his second question. Did you know Uchiha Kazumi at all? Sasuke looked surprised at the question, but answered regardless. No, I didn't. The Uchihas were a big clan, so it's not surprising I did know her. He explained. Naruto let out a disappointed sigh when he heard that. He wasn't expecting anything, but he had been hoping a little. If that's it I would like to finish my lunch alone. How about we meet up tomorrow at lunch and figure out when we can start sparring? Sasuke nodded in approval after he said that. That sounds good. Guess I'll be on my way then. See you tomorrow Naruto. And with that he walked off. He watched him go until he couldn't been seen anymore. When he was out of sight Naruto heard someone else start walking towards him. When the voice spoke Naruto had to suppress a groan. Now that's not very nice. He comes out of nowhere and asks to be your fighting buddy and yet I've been trying for a year and a half and all you do is try to ignore me. How is that fair? The voice asked as Naruto turned around to face his rival. His rival was the top girl in his class. She was a bit short for her age and had pale skin. She had straight, shining white hair that reached just under her shoulder blades and was parted so her bangs went to the right side of her face. She also had unusual pink eyes to finish off her looks. Her name was Mabushi Hikari, Naruto's competition for the class rank of number 1. "Life's not fair, but you don't see other people complaining about such stupid things," he told the girl. He's had a long day and didn't really want to put up with her. She grinned in response. "I'm not complaining. Getting you to compete is half the fun. Besides, we can always spar in class, there's no need to try and get you to spar afterwards." True. Naruto had to give her that one. "But why is it always fighting with you? Why can't we get along?" he asked her. "Well, that's easy," she started. "It's because..." Ding dong ding dong ding dong. Both looked to the school to see kids start filing in at the sound of the bell. Hikari smiled as she looked to Naruto. "Looks like you'll find out some other time. Better hurry if you don't want to be late for class." After finishing her sentence she began making her way to the building. Naruto let out a sigh before he too started to the building. One thing's for sure, he thought to himself. I'm definitely going to be busy for a while. Finished. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto. It was a bright and sunny day for the village hidden in the leaves. It was the beginning of the afternoon and everyone was out and about on this beautiful summer day. You had civilians shopping and working, ninja jumping from roof to roof on the way to their destination, and a group of kids trying to beat the shit out of each other in the name of training. Very typical day in any ninja village. The kids that were trying to beat the shit out of each other were on the training grounds of the academy. They were Uzumaki Naruto, Ikazuchi Kaio, Uchiha Sasuke, Hyuga Hinata, and surprisingly Mabushi Hikari. Hikari had showed up hoping to fight Naruto, but seeing that he already started fighting the Uchiha and Hyuga, had decided to fight with Kaio instead. The fights were taijutsu only with the addition of any weapons allowed. With Naruto's fight, he ducked under a kick from Sasuke and kicked out with his left foot to the other boy's own. With him off balance, Naruto mule kicked him in the stomach with his already outstretched foot and used his new footing to flip forward, thanks to which he avoided an open palm strike from Hinata. Landing on his feet, he quickly turned around to deflect another open jab with his hand. Hinata didn't let up and kept lashing out with strikes that didn't have any chakra behind them, much to Naruto's relief. Out of his peripheral vision he barely managed to see Sasuke coming at him, but see it he did. Grabbing the next jab Hinata sent at him by clamping down on her wrist with both hands, a move that surprised her, he turned and threw Hinata over his shoulder. Releasing her when they were face to face, she flew and crashed right into Sasuke, who wasn't expecting the move. They hit the ground with a thud. "You two have gotten better," Naruto said as the two began to untangle themselves. "But you haven't gotten good enough. Hinata, you're still hesitating too much with your strikes. Don't think about it, just do it. Sasuke, your taijutsu has gotten a lot better, but it still isn't where it could be. I know you want to learn more ninjutsu from your family scrolls, but what good are they if you get tired after doing 2 or 3 of them?" He lectured the two. They had gotten to their feet when he began talking about Sasuke and listened to him finish. Hinata was looking away from Naruto, but not at her feet. She had come a long way in the 2 years she's been friends with Naruto. She was still shy around people and could use some more confidence, but she was working on it. She didn't stutter at all anymore, something she had started doing when she was alone with someone other than Kurenai. She was also the top kunoichi in her class now and second in the class only to Sasuke. He even heard from Kurenai that her improvements impressed her father enough to keep her as the clan heir. That had definitely helped boost her confidence. So even though she was disappointed that she, apparently, let Naruto down, she took his words seriously. As for Sasuke, "You don't have to lecture us. I can figure out my mistakes on my own." He was still rather prideful in almost everything he did, but that's how he was. Despite that, he was thankful to Naruto for all the help he's been to him and respects him a great deal. He just rarely expressed it to anyone, though he did tell Naruto once. It was an odd sort of relationship they had. Naruto considered Sasuke a friend, but not a rival. Sasuke saw Naruto as his biggest rival, second to his brother of course, and as a friend he'd never admit to anyone. "If you can figure them out on your own, why are you still making them?" Naruto questioned, hoping to get a rise out of the boy. Sasuke felt his brow twitch at the question, but took a calming breath. Afterwards he got into a stance and charged at Naruto. As he closed in, Sasuke threw a right hook at Naruto's face. Naruto caught the fist and having seen through the feint brought up his knee to block Sasuke's own. Jumping and spinning clockwise, Sasuke made to snap kick Naruto in the chest with his other foot. Naruto quickly moved his free hand to Sasuke's still raised knee and pushed down. But Sasuke, now completely off balance and falling forward, Naruto uppercutted him in the jaw. Sasuke stayed airborne momentarily before hitting the ground hard. He couldn't even try to get up since Naruto was literally on top of him with a kunai pointed at his throat. You lose, Sasuke. The boy on the ground merely sighed before taking Naruto's offered hand. Helping him up, Naruto turned to his other opponent and got into a ready stance. Sasuke's now out. Do you want to keep going, Hinata? She shook her head in the negative. No. We've been doing this for a while. That last charge was everything I had. Naruto got out of his stance and addressed them both. You guys are getting better. It's getting harder to fight you both at the same time. He told them with a smile. Sasuke scoffed. I'd rather fight one-on-one. He sighed here. But I guess I'm not strong enough for that. Not yet anyway. He let a frown come across his face at this point. I could though if you let me use my Sharingan. Naruto laughed, hearing what he considered to be Sasuke whining. Maybe you could, but we can find that out some other time, maybe when you have enough chakra to keep it active for a useful amount of time. Naruto said as he turned around and sat down. Sasuke pouted when he heard that, which caused Hinata to start giggling. Hearing that, he quickly wiped it off his face before addressing Naruto. I've gotten better with it. I can't. He was cut off by Naruto. SHHHHHH. It's getting good. His eyes never leaving their view. Both Sasuke and Hinata turned to where he was looking and saw Kaio and Hikari break apart from each other after a deadlock. They stared each other down for a minute, which gave the two viewers a chance to look at them more closely. Kaio was wielding a pair of rather large daggers in a reverse position. The flat of the blades were against his arms and he was turned sideways. His legs were shoulder length apart and one arm was in front of him while the other was in the back. There were also some of his throwing knives scattered across the clearing. Sasuke questioned him one time on why he used them instead of kunai. His answer was simple. They're easy to make. You can use any scrap metal and make a half-decent expendable knife. Besides, I can't make kunai. Getting the balance and weight right is really hard when you add the ring to it. It actually made a lot of sense when he thought about it. Hikari was wielding two kunai in her hands to match Kaio's daggers. Unlike Kaio though, she was in a completely relaxed position with her hands at her sides. It looked like she didn't have a care in the world. After a second, a grin formed on her face and she attacked. Kaio decided to meet her halfway with a smirk on his face as he flipped the daggers into a standard grip. They clashed as dagger met kunai in a stalemate. That ended fast though as Kaio began to push her back. Letting him have the advantage over her for a second more, Hikari stopped trying to push back. The result was Kaio off balance and falling towards her. She dropped to a sitting position and rolled onto her back while bringing her feet up. Her feet met Kaio's stomach and Hikari finished her roll. She launched Kaio straight at a tree as she landed on her feet. Kaio righted himself in the air and, using the tree like a springboard, went for his opponent from the air. She saw this and jumped back, avoiding his downward slash. Springing up from his kneeled position, Kaio kept the pressure on her. Even with the pressure, Hikari was still matching him blow for blow. Sparks were left hanging in the air with each clash of metal against metal. Once again holding his weapons in a reverse grip, Kaio tried a wide slash at the girl. She deflected the blow, but narrowly missed the second attack since it was thrown instead of swung. After the throw, Kaio went for a sweeping kick which Hikari avoided with a backflip. Running to meet her before she could collect herself, Kaio retrieved his stray dagger on the way. Instead of waiting for him, Hikari threw her kunai at her opponent. He deflected them away, but it was enough for her to get past his guard. She punched him hard in the face and followed it up with a knee to the gut. With her knee still in his stomach, she pivoted and turned the knee into a kick that sent him back. Kaio stumbled and hit the ground. He tucked and moved into a one-handed handstand, using his other hand to launch knives at Hikari. She had to jump back to dodge them, and by that time Kaio had regained himself. Hikari took out another pair of kunai and they both charged. They once again clashed in a stalemate and locked eyes with one another. That was when Hikari shoved his right hand away and brought up her right foot. She knocked the weapon in his left hand away and made to stab with her now free right hand. The force of the push took Kaio by surprise and caused him to slightly spin to the right. Snapping his right wrist, he caught the dagger in his left hand in reverse grip. The result was Kaio having a kunai pointed at his eye, while Hikari had a dagger ready to slash her neck. Wow. Hinata said as Naruto got up and made his way over to them. Sasuke kept a stoic face, but did nod his head in agreement as they followed Naruto. Looks like a draw. They heard Kaio say when they got close enough. The two hadn't moved an inch since the last strike. Hikari's grin got a little bit wider. You wish. She said as she dropped the kunai in her free hand and brought it up to her neck. Pulling down the neck of her red turtleneck shirt showed the choker of steel she was wearing. Unless you think you had enough strength to cut this. Damn. Guess you win. Kaio said as he lowered his weapon and put it back into the sheath that was attached to a belt around his waist. Hikari did likewise and put her kunai in a pouch on her right hip. They broke apart to gather their scattered thrown weapons. You know, you're better than I thought you were. Definitely too good to be the dead last. She spoke as she picked up and pocketed some kunai. Hinata's eyes widened in shock while Sasuke had an incredulous look on his face. How the hell are you the dope of your class? Kaio chuckled in response. That's a secret. He said as he kept on chuckling. Let it go. Naruto said before anyone could ask any more questions. That's all you're gonna get out of him, so it's best to drop it. Besides, who cares if he's the dead last? All that matters is he can fight. Hikari said. Hinata backed away from the girl at that as the boys looked cautious. It's been fun, but it's about time for me to leave. See you guys later. And I expect a fight from you next time, Naruto. After the girl was out of earshot, Kaio spoke. Girl's out to get you red. Seeing how she's the prettiest girl in class, I don't know if that makes you lucky or fucked. Naruto sighed. I've been trying to figure that out myself. His response caused a round of laughter to come about, even if it was mainly from Kaio. It was under control in a moment and Hinata gave herself the spotlight. I better be getting home too. Arigatou gozaimasu for the advice, Naruto-kun. See you all tomorrow. And with that she too started off towards her home. Least she would have if someone didn't stop her. Yo Hinata, wait up. Kaio said as he made his way to her. It's about time for me to be going too. The old man wanted me to help him with something this evening. We're in the same direction for a while, so I'll join you. You don't have to. She tried, but seeing it didn't work she relented. Arigatou senpai. No problem. Catch you later, Red, Ichiha. And with that it was only Naruto and Sasuke in the field. Turning to face each other, it was Naruto who spoke first. Seeing as the party's over, I guess I'll be on my way. There's a book I've been meaning to check out in the market district. Wanna join me? He asked the other boy. Sasuke shook his head. No. I got my own stuff to be doing. Later. He already had his back turned with one hand in his pocket and waving goodbye with the other. He didn't make it far before he remembered something he wanted to ask Naruto. Hey Naruto. Made any progress with that thing? Even though it wasn't specified, he knew exactly what Sasuke was talking about. Yeah, I've made some leeway with it. You're gonna have to wait to see it though. No reason to show it off to everyone, right? He finished with a smile. Sasuke cracked a smirk of his own before nodding and walking away. Naruto began making his way to the market district as he looked at his hand. He kept on walking as he began to think of what Sasuke was talking about. Flashback, 1 year ago. I already told you everything I know. Naruto told Sasuke. He was sitting down against a tree doing the leaf concentration exercise. Naruto frowned as he looked at the leaf. No matter how much he practiced, his chakra would always get messed up again a few days later. It's like there's something preventing me from getting better control, he thought. If you did, then we would already be done. So what did you leave out? Sasuke asked. Ever since Naruto let it slip that he'd helped Kazumi activate her Sharingan, Sasuke's been on him about unlocking his as well. Naruto could only sigh at the boy standing in front of him. Like I said, it was an accident. We were training and one of my kunai broke at the handle. The blade was headed for her face when she dodged. After her dodge I saw her eyes had changed. Now can we stop talking about this? Even if he accepted her death, it didn't mean he liked talking about it or got over it. Taking a deep breath, he picked up a leaf off the ground and closed his eyes. He started to concentrate on it as he sent his chakra to it. Sasuke though wasn't done. That can't be it. We've tried that and it hasn't worked yet. Maybe that's because you know it's coming. Kazumi told me that most of the time the Sharingan is activated in a life-threatening situation. His voice wavered a bit as he said this next part, the leaf in his hand starting to glow. If Kazumi didn't activate her Sharingan, that kunai would have killed her, and it would have been my fault. He began to shake a little as the leaf in his hand started to dissolve into ash. Even without the leaf, the chakra kept on gathering. Sasuke took notice of the disappearing leaf and tried to say something. Naruto. He was promptly ignored. Even with the Sharingan, she still ended up dying. Damn thing couldn't even keep her alive. He was now sweating a bit as the chakra in his hand took the shape and size of a marble. Maybe if we trained more or something she would still be alive. I mean, she was my friend and I couldn't do anything. Hell, I didn't even know she was dead until a week later. The marble-sized bowl of chakra was now big enough to fill up his palm, but Naruto didn't seem to notice. Sasuke didn't know what it was, but it was starting to give him a bad feeling. You weren't supposed to able to see chakra like that. Naruto. He yelled to get the other boy out of his ramblings. What? He yelled right back as he clenched his fists. That was the wrong thing to do. When the ball of chakra got crushed under his fist, it shot in two different directions. One shot behind him where it hit the ground and left a small hole with a scorch mark around it. The other went straight for Sasuke. Uchiha couldn't seem to move as he saw whatever it was coming at him. Everything just seemed to slow down to a crawl around him. Sasuke was half expecting to see his life flash in front of his eyes, but wasn't disappointed when it didn't. No need to relive some of his recent memories. He was however surprised that he could indeed move when he tried again. Diving to his side, he narrowly avoided the thing that Naruto had unintentionally sent at him. It was then that everything returned to its normal speed for Sasuke as he saw Naruto run for him. "Are you okay, Sasuke?" he asked with wide eyes. "What the hell was that?" Sasuke asked his own question instead of answering Naruto's. "I have no idea," he said as he looked behind Sasuke. Following his gaze, Sasuke's own eyes widened even more, then they were to see a tree that had been behind him. It now had a fist-size hole in it. "I'm sorry, Sasuke. I don't know what I did, but I'm sorry." He turned back to Naruto when he heard the regret-filled apology. He made to say something, but stopped dead when he saw Naruto's eyes. "Damn it, what the hell was that? I almost killed Inochiha for the second time. And both of them are friends," Naruto berated himself, not paying attention to Sasuke staring into his eyes. If he would have been thoroughly creeped out. "You don't have to apologize," Sasuke said as he backed up from Naruto. After all, it all worked out in the end. He smirked thinking about what he saw in Naruto's eyes. He saw his own reflection with the. "You activated your Sharingan," Naruto said as he took notice of Sasuke's eyes. They only had one Tomo in each eye, but there was no doubting the Sharingan. He got over the surprise of seeing them fast and got to what he considered more important. "I do have to apologize. I could have killed you there. I woke my Sharingan, that's all that matters," Sasuke said. Naruto couldn't believe his ears. The Sharingan was more important to Sasuke than his life. Before he could voice the, Sasuke spoke up again. "Thanks, Naruto." That threw him for another loop. Naruto was off his game today. "And not only for helping with my Sharingan. Thanks for sparring with me and helping me get stronger. I might not be at your level yet, but I'll beat you soon. Count on it." He finished with his smirk still in place. But Naruto started but was cut off. "If you want to make up for it, shut up and keep getting stronger. There'd be no challenge if I surpass you too fast and had no one to compare to." Naruto stared at him for a minute before laughing out loud. Sasuke looked on in confusion while he got his laughter under control. After finally calming himself, Naruto responded. "Thanks, Sasuke, I needed that. If you want me to get stronger, then I will. You're going to have to work for it if you want to win against me." He had a smile on his face for the first time since this meeting of theirs began. "Wouldn't be fun beating you any other way," Sasuke responded as they clasped hands. Flashback end. Looking up, Naruto saw the bookstore across the street from the alley he was in. Putting any thoughts on his jutsu, the Sharingan, or anything else away for now, he focused on getting his book. He took a breath and concentrated, then made the necessary hand signs. "Enj no Jutsu, 1. With that, a poof of smoke went up around him. When it cleared, in his place was an average-looking man. He looked to be mid-20s with brown hair and green eyes. Looking himself over, he smiled in satisfaction before making his way into the store. It didn't take long for him to find what he was looking for. They seemed to have a section dedicated solely to this book. Walking up to the register, he put it on the counter and pulled out the required money. "Ah, nice choice, sir. That's a very popular book and I hear a sequel will be out for it next year or so," the cashier said, trying to make small talk. "That's good to hear. He's the author of my favorite book. When I saw he wrote something else, I had to get it." "Well, you won't be disappointed. Okay, here's your book and your change. Have a good day and enjoy your book, sir." "Thank you. You have a good one too," Naruto said as he exited the store. Walking back into the alley, he put the hinge up and he dispelled it. He looked upon his new book with excitement as he went to find a quiet place to start reading it. He had a feeling this Icha Paradise was going to be good. Public Park. Naruto's face was currently as red as his hair. He started reading Icha Paradise about an hour or so ago and was surprised to say the least. Of everything he thought the book would be about, it didn't come close to what it actually was. Though with a title like Makeout Paradise, I shouldn't be this surprised, he thought. However, the thing that shocked him most was that he couldn't put the book down. Its mix of comedy, suspense, and romance were all in perfect balance. And the plot, it was nothing short of genius. Then there was the smut, but even that was well written. One thing was for sure, and that was Naruto was going to have a hard time looking at a woman without blushing for a while. Hearing something close by, Naruto looked away from his book to see what it was. He saw a boy his age laying with his arms crossed behind his head snoring. How didn't I notice him before? Guess I was more into this book than I thought. I wonder why he styles his hair like a pineapple. Shaking his head at his last thought, he closed his book and got up to move to a different spot. What's a 9-year-old doing reading porn? Naruto turned to look at the sleeping kid with a raised brow. First of all, how do you know I'm 9? Second, are you awake or sleep talking? He joked. Mundaki-say. I can tell by your hair that you're Uzumaki Naruto. I've heard about you skipping ahead 2 years, so that makes you my age. I've seen other people read and talk about that book, so I know what it is, and I wasn't asleep, I was resting my eyes. The boy said in a lazy drawl. Naruto's curiosity got the better of him and he walked over to the boy. That's pretty good, knowing my name and all that. What's your name? And for the record, you don't snore when you're resting your eyes. Name's Shikamaru, and you got me there. I woke up when you were leaving and got curious. Shikamaru said, still laying down. So do you still want to know why I have this book? Nah. Too troublesome to think about it now. I'm just gonna watch the clouds. He said as he was watching them. Naruto's sweat dropped hearing his response. Looking up, Naruto followed Shikamaru's lead and relaxed. This spot isn't too bad, but there's a better one on top of the Hokage monument, he said in an attempt at conversation. It got the biggest response out of the Nara yet, a turning of his head and a raised eyebrow. You watch clouds? Once in a while. It's calming to sit back and watch them float by. Takes your mind off things. Naruto said as he too laid back. Shikamaru eyed him for a moment before going back to cloud watching with a smile. You and me will get along just fine. And with that the two sat and watched the clouds. It wasn't long before the silence was broken. Interestingly, it was Shikamaru who broke it. Hey Naruto. You ever play shogi? At night. Naruto was laying in bed, mentally exhausted after his games of shogi with Shikamaru. Man, can he play. I didn't even come close to beating him. Well, that was true, he did manage to challenge Shikamaru, which was why the lazy boy asked for a rematch later. Naruto figured playing a strategy game would help him out later on, so he agreed. Now he was sitting on his bed trying to think of an idea to his chakra problem. Even a full year later he was still having problems with his control. He knew there had to be more advanced ways to work on chakra control, but his sensei wouldn't tell him how. He told him to wait till he became a genin to learn it. So here he was trying to figure out an alternative way to make it better. Maybe if I gather chakra at one point but do it at different parts of my body, I'll find where the problem is. It's not a solution, but it's a start. With a plan in mind he got to work. He already knew he could do it on his forehead and hands with no problems, so he moved to his forearms and traveled up from there. Finding nothing wrong up to his shoulders, he tried his chest, right above his heart. It went just as well as everything else so far. Moving to his stomach, he realized he hit pay dirt. When he tried to gather his chakra at his stomach, it would start fine. However, it would quickly get disrupted and seemingly scatter throughout his body. Now that he found what he was looking for, Naruto wasn't quite sure what to do next. He could always go to someone for advice, or he could try digging a little deeper to find the problem himself. Deciding on the latter, he closed his eyes in concentration. He focused entirely on gather chakra at his stomach area and never noticed that everything around him had been drowned out. He visualized his chakra gathering and forced it to stay together. It took several minutes to do it, but he managed to succeed. Then he felt a water drop hit his head. Opening his eyes, they widened as far as they could when he saw his surroundings. It looked like an old sewer. There were cracked pipes overhead that crossed and tangled together as they carried something throughout this place, occasionally dripping their contents on the ground below. The walls were made of brick, but they were horribly cracked and looked like they would collapse at any minute as they ascended to a height that surpassed the pipes. And the lighting was going between dim to nothing as he heard the sounds of a fluorescent light buzzing in the background before it flickered off and then on again. Odd thing was he couldn't find the lights anywhere he looked. Taking a step forward, he stopped at the splash and looked to see ankle-high water running through the hall he was in. How did I get here? Where is here? He questioned nobody. Thinking on it for a moment and not seeing any other option, Naruto trudged forward. The pathway he was in seemed to stretch on and on to the young redhead. After a while the buzzing and dripping were starting to get on his nerves. It wasn't much longer till he reached a turn and took it. Crash. Looking back, Naruto saw the entrance he just entered from was now blocked off. Facing forward, he saw countless turns that likely lead to more pathways. They all seemed to be perpendicular to the path he was currently in. Turning to look at his blocked-off way once more, he made to punch it. This wall looked just as feeble as the previous ones. He never even fully pulled back his fist before something called him. It wasn't an actual voice or even a sound, but something was calling out to him, something he couldn't resist. Naruto followed the calling. He turned left, right, left, straight, etc. It was a maze and he was somehow navigating it. He did take notice that the farther in he went, the better condition everything seemed to be in. After what seemed like an eternity, he happened upon a door. Feeling himself once again in control, Naruto thought about his options. I can't go back, I don't even know the way back. Plus that one way was blocked off, so I guess I have no choice. I got the feeling I'm going to regret this. Reaching out, Naruto opened the door and walked through. It wasn't another hallway, but a room. It was pitch black and Naruto could make out absolutely nothing. He took 2 steps in and light sprang forth. There were torches about every 5 feet. 5 feet across the room and 5 feet up to the ceiling. All the torches lit one at a time, but even with the light, Naruto realized he couldn't see the ceiling. Apart from the newly lit lighting there wasn't much in this room. He did notice the enormous cage at the end. Taking small cautious steps towards it, he also noticed there was no water on the floor of this room. When he was a short stone's throw away he stopped. He tried peering into the darkness of the cage from his spot, cause he wasn't getting close to a cage of that size without being able to see inside it. That's when he heard it breathing. No sooner did he take notice than a claw of some kind shoot out of the dark for him. Jumping back, Naruto skid to a stop in a ready stance as he stared at the claw. Ha. Not bad, Ninja. Your reflexes are like the simple primates you so resemble. A very deep and gravely voice said. Suddenly more torches, this time behind the cage, lit and Naruto felt a feeling of primal terror he's never known before seep into his soul. In front of him was something that simply couldn't be. It was supposed to have been killed 9 years ago by the Yondaime. But he could see the 9 silhouettes flickering lazily about behind this monster. It was the Kyuubi no Yoko. But how? Naruto asked breathlessly. The beast let out some more dark chuckles as it brought its claw back into a cage. I knew your species had the thought process of a retarded squirrel, but to think you're this stupid. It said as it flicked one of its tails to hit the center of the cage, where the two halves met. For the first time Naruto took notice of the piece of paper holding the doors closed. His eyes widened as he read it. Seal. You're sealed within this place. Naruto never left his tense ready stance, not that it would do much good. If by this place you mean you, then yes I am. At this its eyes snapped open and it had a giant grin on its face. Naruto's breath hitched at that. He'd never seen such fearsome and bloody eyes, nor teeth over twice his size. What are you talking about? You're supposed to be dead, how can you be sealed in me? He was getting panicky now. Calm down, he told himself, to no real avail. How truly pathetic you are, Ninja. You are a disgrace to those who came before you. Even they had some semblance of knowledge and power. What do you mean those who came before me? Naruto asked. Could this monster know his heritage? Sealing is in your blood, you best learn it if you wish to keep on living. The Kyuubi said ominously. This only caused farther confusion for Naruto. Why would you care if I die, and why wouldn't you answer any of my questions? The fear and panic were turning into anger very fast. What the hell is going on? We are connected, boy, and it'd be wise to learn how to speak to your better's worm. If you want answers, learn the sealing that runs through your veins and awaits release. It looked away from Naruto and rested its head on its paws. HMPH, it was an interesting meeting, boy, let's not do it again. At that the Kyuubi slammed all 9 of its tails down at once, sending the red head away with a scream. Now once again alone, another grin worked its way onto its mouth. Ha. Learn all you can about sealing, boy. For everything you learn will be put to good use, my freedom. The Kyuubi let out a long and loud laugh which echoed throughout the chamber and halls, giving it an even more demonic sound than it already had. Naruto sat up with a start. He was sweating heavily and looking left and right to figure out what happened. He was in his room on his floor. He must have fallen off his bed sometime during that encounter. Maybe it was all a dream. He said to no one. No, that wasn't a dream, no matter how much I wish it was, he thought with a frown. Everything makes sense now. The glares and being ignored, people looking at me like I'm a monster, and everything else. Hell, it was my birthday when the Kyuubi was sealed. It all makes sense, he was now lost. Should he be happy he knows why things are the way they are, or be broken that he has a demon sealed in him? Looking to his stomach he saw the same seal he saw on the cage of the fox. That was proof. And what about my family? So many questions. Looking out his window he saw that it was morning. It was then that he decided. Hokage should know what's going on. It was time for Naruto to pay the Hokage a visit. Hokage's office. Sarutobi Hiruzen was the 3rd Hokage and known to many as the god of shinobi for his immense skills. He was also known as the professor for his vast knowledge in not only jutsu, but all things. Yet despite this knowledge and skill he had no idea why the boy in front of him could be here. Uzumaki Naruto had come to his office and nearly demanded to see him. Normally he would tell the boy to wait while he got things settled, but the boy looked very tense and fidgety. He also seemed to be watching everyone that passed him with a critical, if not slightly paranoid, eye. That was far enough away from the boy's norm to warrant some worry. So he let Naruto in and now was waiting for him to ask what he wanted to see him for. Naruto sighed before throwing it out there. I know about the Kyuubi being sealed in me. His eyes never left the widening ones of the Hokages. That was certainly not something Hiruzen had been expecting, at least not for a few more years. Looking into Naruto's eyes he knew there was no way to convince him otherwise. Resigning to fate Hiruzen started this, potentially long, conversation. I can tell there is no use denying it, but how did you find out? Who told you? This was an S-class secret. Whoever told him would be. The Kyuubi did. I had a chat with the fox. Sarutobi nearly dropped his pipe right there. The boy has had contact with the fox, but how? The seal should prevent that unless Naruto wills it, narrowing his eyes at the thought and in speculation, he voiced out loud. Explain everything from the beginning. We'll go from there. Naruto nodded and began his explanation. After Naruto had explained everything, Hiruzen took a long drag of his pipe. I'll tell him what I can of the seal and help him start on sealing. We'll start there with a plan in mind. He initiated it. I know this must all be very confusing for you, Naruto, but firstly let me assure you, you are not the Kyuubi. I know that, Naruto said. At the Hokage's raised brow he elaborated. I talked to the Kyuubi while it was in its cage. Why would I think I'm the Kyuubi? Hiruzen had to smile at the boy. You'd be surprised how some people react to having a demon sealed in them. Naruto had to give the Hokage that one. But with that out of the way, on to the reason the Kyuubi sealed in you. I'm sorry to say, but it was just circumstantial. What do you mean? Naruto asked. The Kyuubi showed up out of nowhere and attacked us. We needed a newborn whose chakra coils hadn't been fully developed. You happen to fit that criteria. So that's it. I was just the unlucky one. Naruto said with depression hanging in his voice. Are you mad at the Yondaime for it? Do you blame him? Hiruzen wanted to see what was going on in the boy's head. Yes and no. Seeing the Hokage wait for more, he continued. It's because of him that people ignore me and hate me. He turned me into what I am, but he's the Hokage. He put the village first like a respectable Hokage should. I don't like what he did, but I can respect it. That put a smile on the Hokage's face. By the way, what am I? You said there were others with demons in them. What are we called? Jinchuriki. Hiruzen answered. Naruto winced at the name and he decided to move on. Now you said you wanted to follow the Kyuubi's advice, can't believe I just said that, and learn about seals. At Naruto's nod he continued. I can get you a beginner's book, but I must warn you. Never try to use any seals without someone with you. Seals are highly dangerous and can turn deadly at even the very smallest mistake. Is that clear? Crystal Hokage Jiji. After saying it, Naruto looked down at his feet, his bangs shadowing his eyes. Hokage Jiji, the Kyuubi said that sealing runs in my blood. Do you know anything about my family? He asked the question Hiruzen was hoping he didn't. Despite how much he wanted to, he knew he couldn't tell the boy. There was simply too much risk involved. I thought perhaps I could make a deal with him. I'm sorry Naruto, but I can't tell you anything about them. And with that he waited for the outburst. Why the hell not? Typical reaction to an orphan being denied their parentage. Your parents had many enemies. Do you wish to be responsible if one of those enemies decides to do something drastic? And it wouldn't be only you involved, but this village as well as your friends. That may have been laying it on a bit thick, but it got the point across. No I don't, but he didn't know what to say. I have a proposition for you Naruto. His full attention was on the Hokage once more. I'll tell you about your parents, but only when I think you're strong enough. When you become a genin, I'll tell you about your mother. When you become a chunin, I'll tell you about your father. How does that sound? Hiruzen finished. Despite it not being what he wanted, Naruto could see the Hokage was doing what he could. He was meeting him in the middle. Alright, I guess that's okay. But the second I move up a rank I'll be here waiting. Naruto said. The Hokage let out a small chuckle. Of course, I'd expect nothing less. Now, about your chakra. I'm afraid there isn't really anything we can do about it. The Kyuubi's chakra is slowly being purified and added to your own reserves. It will keep growing, but worsen your control, he said with some regret. There has to be something I can do. I can make an okay clone, but I doubt it'd pass. Unless I get better control I won't be able to make a perfect one. Naruto tried to reason with the Hokage. Said Hokage thought about it for a moment before he had an idea. Alright, then I'll teach you a variation of the Bunshin no Jutsu, too. Think of it as an early graduation present. Hiruzen smiled at the boy's stunned expression. You're going to teach me a jutsu? Really? Yep, but you should know it will be hard. It's called the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu 3, and it's a forbidden jonin skill. Before you ask, it's only forbidden due to the amount of chakra it takes, something I don't see you having a problem with. He explained. Thanks a lot Hokage-sama for everything today. Naruto smiled to the old man. He just smiled back and chuckled. Of course Naruto. Come back in a couple days and we'll start with the jutsu. I'll also have a beginner's book for sealing ready. But remember what I told you. Just read, no practicing them without someone with you. Got it? See you soon Hokage Jiji, and thanks again. With that Naruto walked out of the office and made his way home. While he was walking Naruto was thinking about things. He was the container of the Kyuubi no Yoko. The village knew about it and the Hokage knows about his parents. He felt betrayed at that one, but remembered his deal with the Hokage. He had a new jutsu to learn, one to finish, and had to learn sealing. 6 months till graduation. I got a lot to do, but there's no way I'm not passing. I'll pass and learn more about my family. Nothing's going to stop me. Finished. What if Naruto has red hair in the Rinnegan, and thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.